Hello everyone. Hi. So it's been a minute since I last made a video. The holidays, they've been very busy, pre and post. So that's what I've been preoccupied with. The next thing on my agenda was to make uh, or do a review of the latter half of the release, which is, parts 4 through 6. And now we're a couple weeks out of that release, but I still want to do it, so I'm going to do it, as I'm sure the title indicates. And I'm gonna just go ahead and do it, even though there have been like a million different stories that I wanted to cover and should cover because they're a bit more pertinent, but I have a way about these things. I like to do them in order, so I'm going to do them in order, and the other topics will be discussed in other videos, from Jeremy Clarkson to Andrew Tate, I should call him Taint, to Andrew Taint, to the most recent big thing, which is with this woman called Joanna Wiseman, I think. Yeah, all of that has happened, and I am so very behind. I did record a version of this though, and then I just it was no good. So I stopped at 30 minutes in, because I was just so sleepy. It's been a busy couple of weeks. Christmas is it's a busy time over here. Okay, but so what I want to do obviously is do this review. Obviously I'm going to start with episode 4 and just an overall, well, no, I won't go overall. I'll just do it episode by episode, and hopefully I won't go too long, so I can discuss and review all 3 final episodes here, all in one video. That's the ideal scenario. Okay, so let's just get into it. Episode 4, it begins with a montage of British royal weddings. Starts with Queen Elizabeth's, and then I think we see Anne's, or we see Kate and William's, certainly, and it's all leading up, because the first half was very it was their relationship timeline, it was their getting to know each other, it was them falling in love, it was their love story. And I mean, the latter half is part of it too. It's all part of their love story, but it's the first part was more lovey-dovey, all 3 first parts, and then this is the first 3 were building up to the wedding. So this is the wedding episode where countdown. Okay, yeah, so it shows the montage, right? And then of different British royal weddings, and then Meghan shares a story, shares something that the Queen's private secretary told her, seemingly to assure her that things would turn out fine, because she was the new element in this big ancient family. And if there's always that element of fame with famous people, of it's they're characters in a sense. It's not great to think of them that way, but the mind can't help but conflate sort of the feelings we have about people we see on TV. And a lot of the time the people we see on TV are fiction, and so we treat them we empathize with them, but we also sort of, there's it varies. It can be a slight to a intense dehumanization that happens. And so we just sometimes forget, that famous people are people, And so it can feel like when there's a new person added to this public family, they're like a new character. So this presumably woman was telling Meghan, you know, you're new, and it'll be weird for people at first, but they'll eventually warm up to you, so don't worry about it, doll. But the way she said it, the way Meghan explained it, was the woman said something more like, at first it's gonna be like, what's the metaphor? Like, you're like a foreign organism, and people are gonna be like, what is that? Why is it here? It's not like us. It doesn't move like us. It doesn't talk like us. It doesn't look like us. Get it off of us. But then, as you merge your way into or with this big fish of a family, they'll slowly see you are actually helpful. You are actually a benefit, and you will slowly become part of the fish. And you know, like, basically will accept you, because I guess there was that apprehension, and it's just natural when you're even when you're marrying into a normal family. It's, yeah. So I guess that was some assurance she was offered, and she said she really hoped that would happen, and I did too. I have my memories from those days as a Suits fan turned Meghan fan, when the big moment for me, my Hermione moment, I call it. I call moments like these Hermione moments because I gotta explain this. Once upon a time, Harry Potter was my favorite character in the Harry Potter books. Then there was a scene where Hermione did something so badass and amazing and cool that like had me on the edge of my seat. I kept getting up while reading the book and like pacing and like gasping, and it was so dramatic, but like it was my natural reaction. I was just like, I can't believe she's doing this. And anyway, so that is the moment Hermione became my favorite character, and replaced Harry in that way, even though Harry's still great, but like Hermione is like, she's like bam. Anyway, so every time that happens now, when I go, like, I'm a casual fan, and sometimes I'll be a casual fan. Usually I'm a casual fan of people of whom I'm a fan of, and then there are these moments where they like do something that's so relatable or so cool or so funny, whatever, that makes me like them, and then I've been calling that my Hermione moment for like the last 10-15 years now. So this was that when Meghan did her Larry King interview, that was like my Hermione moment. To be honest, it actually probably happened just a little bit. Like, I was already like, she was already kind of my favorite, and then there was just this cool moment in her Larry King interview where Larry's getting, you know, he's an old man, so he's like, well, what do you need feminism for? Well, he said something like this, like, what do you need feminism for? You're pretty, something like that. And then she just does this thing that's so like, she's like, all right, okay. And she's like, then she goes on to explain, like, you know, feminism is for everyone, for all women, and, you know, being pretty doesn't like preclude you from needing it. But it was brilliant, and her reaction was brilliant, and I just fell in platonic love with her in that moment. Anyway, so that's just a mini little side story of how my like journey to becoming a fan of Meghan. It was, you know, I've said this before in some other video, I was one of the few million who actually knew of her, but I guess not before I knew of Harry, but like outside of Harry. And so when it was announced that they were dating, I knew her. I was one of the people who knew her. And so I've definitely said this before. It's a different experience when you knew the person versus if like the first time you heard Meghan Markle's name and knew of her existence, it was because of this new story that she was dating Prince Harry. I can understand that. I can understand our culture and our species can just be very cynical and they're not seeing love and humanity and two humans falling in love. They're seeing it politically. They're seeing it, like, a lot of black women, like, recently especially, have been having this critique of, like, why would she even date someone who's in that colonizer family? And they just completely miss the, like, the human connection part of this. Like, Harry didn't ask to be born into this. It's like, I feel sometimes like I'm alone in my level of empathy. It's just, I feel what it would be like to fall in love, not with a prince, with a man who's like, he's so likable, he's left-leaning, he's like sweet, he's chivalrous. Like, who wouldn't? He's a whole human here. He's not just a title, and it's like, like, I don't know, and most people don't even date politically. It's been an annoying last few days, honestly, for that. And like, and then the other side of that is like the white women Karens. They're like, more of their cynicism is like, she just saw money and a crown, and that's all she cared about. Sort of telling on themselves, because I feel like you're admitting that's what you would care about. That's what you prioritize. That's what you think of when you see Prince Harry. Like, you just see a title and a crown. And I've been asking people who say stuff like this on all sides, but especially the racist women, why is it so hard for you to believe that Meghan could fall in love with Harry? It's not like they're oil and water here. They're like so similar. Their beliefs are similar. The woman Meghan has been since before she met him. It hasn't changed. It's not like she was like right leaning and like I don't know. She wasn't right leaning before. She wasn't like anti-feminist or something, and then she like changed for him and became more liberal and more like, I don't know, like Diana, his mom. It's like, or reverse. It's not like she was like liberal before him and now she's like more conservative. Like, she seems to have always just been her, which is this left-leaning woman who is like open-minded and yoga doing and like goofy a bit and dorky, like that like we see her before. We see her in old interviews. Her personality didn't change. It wasn't like a con job. She didn't like try to fit her personality to be something different. Like, she's always been that. As for as long as she's been famous, and even people from her old life say she's always been that. Like, there was no personality change to ensnare him. So that truly just comes from misogyny, and misogyny that's indulged in so hard because of racism, because it's just this cynical view of women that they're just plotting, scheming types, and it's always so easy to believe because it's a stereotype to view women that way, especially women with a certain look, like a what do you call this, like a pretty girl look, like a conventionally pretty look. It's very believable, unfortunately. And because, like, if you think of it like how these humans in the world would be cast in a movie, like if you can cast them in a movie to play a thing, you can cast them in your mind. So Meghan, someone or a Meghan looking type would be cast to play like a mean lady, like a evil stepmother, an attractive evil stepmother. Like in other shows it's been a more brunette, darker, I guess, woman who plays that role, and no one, like, she wouldn't get cast as that and have a public reaction of like, oh, this casting doesn't feel right. She looks the part. So like, so that people, she's working against that subconscious bias and misogyny in people. Anyway, I'm like sidetracked already. I don't want this to be long because I wanted to do all three. So sorry for that. But okay, so back to it. So I guess, so she didn't have to win me over, I guess, is maybe what I was trying to say. A lot of people who, for them, she was this new character in this plot, in this story, in this show we're all watching that's technically also real life. And for them, she truly was, for most people, she truly was a new character. Like they didn't know her. They were introduced to the name Meghan Markle when the news story broke that she was dating Prince Harry. Not for me though. So it's different. It's a different experience. You're definitely gonna be less cynical, like right off the bat. Less side-eyeing, less distrustful, less, assuming gold digger, assuming all this stuff, assuming she looks like the part she could play in a movie, or assuming she has the character or personality of the part, the bad part, the negative part she could play in a movie. That all those things will come to you more easily, more readily, if you had never heard of her. But I had. So it's like, it sucks because it's like it just makes me more empathetic to her. And again, the empathy is like to the core. Like I just see myself quite literally in her position of like, Prince Harry wants to date me, okay, and like just knowing the bits that I know of him which are negative, and wondering, is he like that? And that like would translate to the is he nice question, but if it's me, I would ask it more, isn't he an asshole? It would come out more like that, which it may have for Meghan, but she wouldn't obviously repeat that in an interview. But yeah, so is he nice would definitely be like first question. Does he seem as bad as the like one story I know of him, Nazi costume at the time? Man, I know so much more about Harry and the rest of his family than I did in like 2016. It's crazy. But I did know dribs and drabs about him and his family even then. And like I knew he seemed like the scoundrel, the like bad boy. And so yeah, I would wonder that too. And then when I'm told he's chill, and I look through his IG and he's like, oh, Mr. Photographer over here. He like cares about things. He's not shallow. He's like, that would be nice. I would say yes. I would say yes to the date. Not just because crown, not just because prince, but because seems like nice man. I'll give it a shot. Let's see. Is he gonna be playboy? Is he gonna be dickish? How well does my friend really know him? We'll see. I'll feel them out. Like I see myself doing that, and I can feel what it would feel like, because in my personal life, I know what it is to fall in love. And I don't know, I feel maybe a lot of British people don't, maybe a lot of women out here don't, and they just don't know that feeling, because it's like, the way they talk is like, they just don't even have these human experiences of like, what it is to fall in love. It's crazy. But yeah, so that's what I would do. But, I guess it's a mixture of things. Some people just can't relate to that, or they just dehumanize it so much, so they just see a business transaction, really from her end. Because I think a lot of people, the people who hate Meghan, they feel Harry is in love, but they don't think Meghan is. And there's no logical reason why. Like, it's not like you can go, oh, he's not lovable. It's like, he's very lovable and he fits her politics. Like, there's no okay, I don't need to keep getting into that. Yes, so again, when she's back to the plot, back to the part 4. Yeah, I get so sidetracked, forgive me. But yeah, so I said the montage of royal weddings. It was Elizabeth's, then like Diana's, then like I don't think Anne's was there. I was thinking of like Anne was included in the recap of like women who have presented their babies, and that comes later. So it was Elizabeth's, Diana's, then Will's, then Harry, here he is next. And like, speaking of that, like, that's another thing you see in each moment, that these big royal weddings come with the royal, like, because it's such an abuser and abusive tactic, and it's so dishonest when people who hate Meghan, who have that bias, they throw in her face that her wedding cost $30 million. Meghan didn't request a $30 million wedding. Like, even if she wanted a normal wedding, like, because, like, she didn't even want the big royal spectacle wedding, I don't think. Because there was that article that came out, I've mentioned this before, that said she and Harry wanted, like, a private wedding, but they were told it was too much. They're like, them, you know, Harry getting married, Diana's only other child getting married, was public interest. So the public wanted to see it, be a part of it. You are like, that's part of the contract of royalty, is like, you do stuff to like make us smile. You kind of entertain us. There's a little element of that. Like, we pay for you and you do what we want. And people wanted to see Diana's boy, and Harry even kind of said something like this. They wanted to see Diana's other boy get married. That was like the reason, and it comes with him. Like, whoever he married, even if it wasn't Meghan, even if it was someone you liked, even if it was a fully white woman or a very demure woman. Kate 2.0 never talked and was just very quiet and took the beating silently. Even if it was that, she still would have gotten that huge 8-digit big budget wedding. That came with Harry. That is what that showed us. I mean, that's, I don't know if that was the intention, but like, common sense should tell you, if we're being honest here. But that's the thing, is people are never honest in their criticism, with in their attacks of Meghan. Like, Harry's wedding, Prince Harry's wedding, was going to be a big spectacle, no matter who he chose as a wife, no matter who he proposed to and who said I do, and who said yes to his proposal. It was not Meghan specific. This was not a Meghan Markle request or event or specification. It's not like William had a like quiet wedding, and then Diana's wedding was also quiet, and then the Queen, like, this is the tradition. It's the royal tradition to do it big, particularly if you're like popular. And Harry was ranked like second most popular to the Queen for years before Meghan was in his life. So this idea that this wedding was expensive because of Meghan, and it's this gift that she should be grateful for, and she's not acting grateful. She didn't ask for it. Throwing someone a $30 million wedding or any price wedding doesn't mean you get to abuse them. She still gets to complain if you do bad things to her. She still gets to talk about it. Like, again, abuser tactics here, to like say, I spent money on you, so you should like put up with the cruel things I want to do to you. That's insane. That's insanely wrong, immoral, inappropriate. Like, how, and it's illogical. But more than anything, it's illogical. That doesn't make sense. That, like, she didn't ask for it to cost that much. She didn't ask for it to be planned in that way. It was planned in a very Harry specific or Harry tied way, royalty tied way. That was not her doing. And even if she wanted that, like, the normal royal tradition wedding, even if she wanted that, it's not like she got to keep the money. It's not like she really got anything from that. It's like, it's an intangible object. It's nothing. Like, I know, like, I don't know how else to say it. It's just like, a wedding is not something you can put in your pocket. She can't pass it to her children. It's not, you can't do anything with it. It's a memory. And that's it. And that's where it ends. And then the fact that wedding, Harry's wedding, Prince Harry's wedding, generated like about $1 billion, which is part of the reason why they insisted that he have it the traditional way, the expected way, I should say, for a first-time married royal as Harry is. I mean, like, it's not like they got more, the country got more out of it than Meghan did. Like, what did Meghan actually get out of it? What did she get? She did the wedding that it was expected of her husband because of his position, because of his popularity, because of who he is, what he is, Prince Harry. And then what? Like, she wasn't getting a salary. It's just, she followed tradition. And like, because it looks so lavish and cool to outsiders, and they, in their heads, again, it's that thing, the like dehumanization thing, the like, and the cynical way people view women, subconsciously and consciously thing, where it's like women love money and pearls and sparkles and weddings. So she must have been loving it. I mean, it's her wedding day, so of course she was happy to be getting married. But just like her getting any kind of joy out of it, smiling at it, people are just like, they were already, as most of these people who like really throw that in her face, the cost of the wedding, they were like gritting their teeth on her wedding day. I know they were. For sure they were. These were not people who were happily cheering them on. These were people who were like, Harry, why? Why her? Why? I have to smile. I'm smiling. I'm happy for her. They weren't happy for her. They weren't happy for him. They were upset. But there was no reason you could voice your upset yet, and so you just would have looked like a crazy racist. So they waited. They waited for cover, and they got it soon enough. Anyway, back to the timeline. I'm gonna try so hard not to get sidetracked, but that just needed saying. So, montage. The thing the lady said, the private secretary of the late Queen said about "you'll eventually fit in" was basically the translation. And, okay, and then Meghan was, like, really calm on her wedding day, she said. She was, like, chill. She just wanted a croissant and a mimosa and to listen to this one song. And she was, like, very into, like, the love aspect of her union, it seemed. She was, like, giddy girl kind of vibe is what I got, my impression of it. She's, like, doing the like soundtrack to it, like setting the mood. I'm going to the chapel to get married. I think that's what it's called. I don't know. That's the lyric anyway. So yeah, I felt that I like hashtag been there, hashtag relatable. And apparently it's not to a lot of other people, not relatable. So I think that's part of it. A lot like that does seem to be the pattern. Like the people, the most vocal people I've seen attacking her on all sides, mostly they're like right-leaning or racist-leaning, which is like the same thing almost, overwhelmingly, but it's like they're not in love marriages. They're in like, we should do this now because it's tradition and I want children kind of marriages. So, I don't know, that seems to be a part of it. Anyway. Then, that was an interesting little tidbit that Harry chose her walking down the aisle music. That was really sweet, and it was very beautiful voice, and I wonder where he knows that song from, or like why it's special to him. But it was very perfect. It was beautiful, very fitting for an aisle walk or a wedding march. And then Harry praised his dad for helping choose the orchestra and the choir. Those are two separate things, by the way. But yeah, the choir was like a black choir from England. I forgot what they're called, but it was like the way Meghan described it was like the best parts of different choirs, and they were put in like one choir. I don't know if it was just for the day or if that's their origin story or what, but yeah, and I read that Charles picked them out, and that, you know, Harry in the documentary, Harry said, or was it Meghan? One of them said that that was something else that his dad helped them with and like he gave input on. It fits, it checks this because they corroborated Charles's story. So yeah, and that was like, that's a thing too people hold against her. They were saying she was trying to like play up being black because she chose them. I mean, she okayed it. She didn't choose them though. That was Charles's doing. I can't say what his motivations are. Only he knows. And Harry and Meghan have a better idea. And they were being very like, I feel like they were soft on him. and even kind to him. Because, like, another thing that happened in this part 4, is Meghan called Charles charming when she was explaining that she actually, and this I didn't know, she asked him to walk her down the aisle. I thought Charles offered, but yeah, she's the one who asked him, and she's like, he's very charming, and that's interesting, you know, we don't know these people. So, and it's possible he has some, like, gift of gab skills that you don't get a sense of as an outsider watching him on your television, even if you live in England and you've been watching him for like decades and decades of your life. It's quite different from hearing someone just have a candid conversation or several candid conversations. But then, like, you see, it's like they were nice to him. That description was kind. The way they talked about how he helped pick the choir and the orchestra, it seemed kind. But then, like, he was also named in one of the people who advised Meghan to write the letter to her father, and then they all seemed to turn on her for writing it. So I don't know about that. But that we're not there yet, okay? But so yeah, the wedding was it was big and people were excited, and certainly there were lots of excited people in my memories. It was a big day. It was all over. It like took over social media. It was everywhere. People were tweeting, and really I wasn't seeing it as much on Twitter because I wasn't on Twitter very much back then. But my main social media go-tos were YouTube and Instagram. And Instagram was crazy talking about it. Instagram was just picture after picture, still after still of this big wedding. That's why to me that guy who told Meghan, people were like celebrating in South Africa. People were celebrating on my block. Americans were celebrating so that was very believable to me because like royal watchers and people who are just temporary royal watchers, Diana lovers for the day, they were like excited. Her son, her second son, the favorite son, honestly, was getting married. It was a big deal. So like that there would be like pockets of people in like neighborhoods of South Africa, random neighborhoods, like celebrating and like being joyous because it's, you know, it's a wedding and it's a televised one. So like yeah, there were people, and like I even remember many years before that, 2011, when Kate and William got married. I really wasn't interested in watching that, and that was not that, I promise that's not shade, just like at the time I was just not interested. But I was working back then, and when I went to work, there were a bunch of people crowded around the TV watching it. There was fanfare. People were excited, and they were like, this one lady in particular, she was just like making these noises. So it's like both instances I have like clear memories of people being excited because it's a televised event. It's one of Diana's sons. It was a big deal. So yeah, I am sure there were people who were happy and celebrating, yeah, on the streets of wherever, Johannesburg, wherever, of South Africa. Not like the whole nation was celebrating, and it probably wasn't to the level of like Mandela being released from prison, but like celebration is celebration. So I imagine that whoever told her this, it was just like in his memory, he just remembers how like people were celebrating, and celebrating, or celebration in the memory looks like celebration, feels like celebration. Like if someone is celebrating because a man was released from prison who was unjustly in prison, and celebrating because a wedding is happening, and finally a person of color is entering a family that literally you can only enter that tier of society by marrying in, because everyone is genetically white, and it's the structure is you have to be family to be a royal, or you marry in, again, you become family that way. So a person of color, like, you know, a lot of the country are finally got that job role, and it was, yeah, I'm sure that was exciting. I know in America where there's even less interest in the royal family, because like South Africa is, at least is a Commonwealth country, America's not, and there was so much celebrating in America. Like, are you kidding me? That is very believable, but of course they spin everything, and like, oh my gosh, Meghan can say like it rained yesterday and people would be like she's lying. So I mean, she just lives in this very unique situation now where she's like whatever she says does is going to be framed as bad or it didn't happen, like no matter what. And it's like that sucks. But yeah, so it sucks though, for real. But yeah, I can see that. I can, because I saw it. I saw Celebration in my little neck of the woods in America. So that was very believable that some parts of a Commonwealth country would be celebrating, especially a Commonwealth country with lots of people of color. Yeah, I'm sure that did happen. I 100% believe it. And then I saw a video too of people in South Africa were like crying on Meghan's wedding day. Like, so like that, tears for that, celebration for that. I promise you, it looks just like tears and celebration for a man, who was wrongfully convicted being released from prison. Like, humans can only emote in so many ways, people. Celebration looks like celebration. Tears look like tears. What are you mad about? Like, ugh. Okay, but anyway, so then James Holt, like after the wedding, which was like beautiful. We saw like they showed pictures from their reception where they cut a cake with a sword. They both said just kind of just like that. And then we even saw happy moments, like pictures with William and Kate. And no, like, that's the other thing. They were very nice to William and Kate for the most part. The only thing was, like, Harry said some, like, they were really nice to Kate. The only time she was included was, like, as someone who's been victimized by the press. They, like, didn't put her down at all. But the way they tell it, because, you know, they're dishonest like that, Meghan attacked her and trashed her, and Harry attacked her and trashed her. Just these vague. And then if you ask, what did they say? Can you please quote where they attacked or trashed anyone? Just a quote. Blocked. Like, that's been happening so much lately. When I ask for, like, can you expound on this accusation where you're saying they trashed their family? Can you give one quote where they did that? And then just automatic block. It's like they've created these echo chambers for themselves where you cannot challenge their lies. It's wild. It like barely gets called out. Then they'll turn around and say, oh, Meghan likes to create an echo chamber. Oh, every good article about Harry and Meghan, they probably paid for it. Like every accusation, gotta remind myself, every accusation is like always a confession. Like that, whoever, like I've been saying a version of that, I want to give myself credit, seriously, I've been saying a version of that for like since Obama's administration, because like that's when I really like first saw like I would see the right behave so horribly, heinously, hanging this man's or burning this man's effigy, hanging this man's effigy. And then they would say, oh my gosh, the left is so evil, because like a lefty will say like you know, they'll have said something like right-wingers are like, you know, back when it was a little bit more acceptable, they would say like R-worded, or they're so dumb. Then they'll say, oh my gosh, the left is heinous, the left is evil. I'm like, you guys literally burn President Barack Obama's like doll representative effigy in or burn it. You chant like a bunch of crazies, and you don't want to listen to his wife give some kids some advice for you know, how to have a good start to their school year. You were like boycotting that. It was crazy, and people just kind of forgot about that, and they were so evil, so mean to both, to Obama, or to Barack Obama, to President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. They were so cruel to them. And then the reason it stopped is because they stopped being, or President Obama stopped being president. It ended after 8 years. It ended, and if we had like a thing where you could be president for like 4 terms or something, and he was still president, they would be attacking him still. They would be attacking Michelle still. But they're like, oh, they finally the blacks got out of power, because that was a huge part of it. Like this would not have happened. The like doubting, all of the conspiracy theories about him being a secret Muslim, all of the birther stuff, so similar. It's so similar to the Meghan didn't birth her own children stuff, because that you need that to like justify why you don't want her kids in the line of succession. All the dehumanization. Meghan is like taking a double whammy of what Barack, it feels so disrespectful to call him that, President Barack got, and former First Lady Michelle got, where it's like, because she's getting the female racism, the racism, the misogynoir, and she's also getting racism. So she's getting like what both of them got, all to targeting one person. And there's so many parallels. I'm like so many styles and go-tos for insults, or they remind me of how Michelle and President Barack Obama were insulted. All the dehumanization, the name calling, refusing to call her name. They refused to call Michelle her name. They dehumanize Barack as some sort of antichrist. They do the same thing to Meghan, liken her to the antichrist, call her evil for like showing us her curtsy. And then it's like, if I like, okay, I won't get into this. It's so, they're insane, and there's no like, now I'm a part of it. Now I'm part of adult world. I was a kid back then when Obama was president. So like now I'm a fellow adult, and it's like, you know, because like the adults could talk about this and say, see, the right is crazy, and it's like, okay. I don't even though it was like adults doing the attack, there was a nice balance, a huge balance of lefties, I guess, who were like pushing back and pointing out to us kids, they're insane, basically, like, this is obviously wrong, this is cruel what they're doing. But now, I don't know, now that I'm in adult world, it feels like there's no authoritative figure, especially for Meghan. She doesn't have that big support of the left like the Obamas did. That part is sad. It's sad, and I do think part of it is because she's a woman. I know she wasn't elected to this position, but she, like, empathy is empathy. She's one of us. She's an American being treated so, like, identically, but even worse in a lot of ways than the Obamas were, because it's like there's such a unique type of, there's like such a disproportionate amount of hate. Like, I mean, they were getting a disproportionate amount of hate from any president, but I mean, like, just the way it's working now, where it's like, I've just never seen so many hate channels for one person before. I've never seen this. I've never seen so many hate accounts. I've never seen so many subreddit spaces. It's like, she is drowning in hate, and there's just like this also left faction. There's no pushback. Like, the Obamas had like the left media pushing back, because he represented the left to them. But like, so does Meghan. Meghan represents the left, and I don't know. It's whatever. It's not whatever. It's very sad, and it's like there's so much. Like, if you're a real journalist worth your salt, there's so much to uncover here. Like, I know, like, this is not supposed to be about that, but, like, there's such an obvious connection between the owner of Politico and the scathing article that was just written about Meghan, and how it's just so baseless. There's no, like, examples. There's no, like, clear, like, what makes Meghan a narcissist? Like, if you're going to accuse that, spell it out, point it out, make your argument. There isn't one. It's just a, like, bitter, racist woman, like, now having the freedom to, like, be racist in an open way that isn't, like, so obvious. It's like a covert racist dream. But that's not what this is about, so I won't talk about that here. That deserves its own video. Man, okay, I won't, not now. Okay, back to this, yeah. Okay, so the wedding was beautiful, it was big, because of Harry. and it was a spectacle because of Harry, because he's a prince and that's his tradition. And then they did their carriage ride, and I remember it was like really fun to watch that. And what else? Okay, and then yeah, cut the cake with the sword, and then off to the party where Meghan changes her dress, and they have the maybe more intimate. I don't know. William and Kate may have been there, but there weren't in any of the pictures where that's where they showed this as a trailer or a preview or a commercial, you could call it, where they shared how Meghan chose the first song, and it was, what was the song? Land of a Thousand, no, I don't remember it. Land of a Thousand Songs or something. A song you've probably heard before. And it was just, they were so into each other. It was so sweet. It's like, oh man. Anyway, I had a frustrated thought. I wanted to go on another rant, but I'm holding back because enough rants for now. So there was clearly a lot of fun had, a lot of pictures shared from that evening, from that portion of that evening. None with William and Kate though. No brothers hugging or anything. Harry had a whole team of brothers, a whole squad of dudes who were his groomsmen, and he shared that. But if they exist, he didn't share pictures of him with I was gonna call him something, with William. He didn't share any of those if they exist. So he didn't take any, or he didn't share any. And I mean, clearly William is spoiler alert, he's a huge backstabber. It's that should have been the takeaway, but English news is obviously not going to cover that. But American news isn't even covering that. That's huge. Isn't that odd that American news isn't even covering it? Okay, whatever. So after all of that happens, James Holt, he made this comment that stood out to me about how, because I thought of it this way too, where Meghan, outside of Harry's love for her, she was the perfect addition to the BRF, as a new character. It's this is where you would write in a character like Meghan. It's yeah, that felt right at the time. It felt right. I thought that's a version of what I was thinking. Oh, and yeah, James Holt is the executive director of the Archwell Foundation. So yeah, he came with them to America, is what it seems happened. Okay, and then so we got a little bit more insight to what it was like living at Nottingham Cottage, which that's one of the things I remember reading pre Harry and Meghan being together. Just, I don't remember the why of it, but I remember reading some sort of article about, I might have even just Googled, where do royals live, or where does Harry live? I feel sometimes random questions just in life like that would come to me and I would Google them. We've all been there. I feel I might have Googled that, and I learned Harry lived in this place called Nottingham Cottage, and I learned that William and Kate had lived in it too, because that was familiar to me when they were going over that. But yeah, they showed it and it looks so gross. I mean, we didn't see it all, but it's definitely low ceilinged, and that's really unfortunate for a bunch of guys who are 6+ feet. You know, Harry's tall and William's even a little taller, and they're in that space, in that tiny space. I mean, maybe it's you're eventually gonna live in a palace, so do this for a while. This is the our form of humbling you, or it's just servants' quarters turned to I don't know, bachelorette quarters. I don't know. But yeah, so that's where they were living together. And I also remember reading, that place, it has, no air conditioning. I've heard people disparage it before Harry and Meghan even talked about it. So that's the other thing. It's it's one of those things, like, if Mike Tyndall had said that, people would have laughed. If Mike Tyndall said, oh, that place is, it's like I'm wearing a house, it's like a belt on me, people would have been like, oh, Mike. And that's the appropriate reaction to have for all my issues with Mike Tyndall. It's like, yeah, because it's funny. But like now nothing Meghan says will ever be received in like a normal way. It's like it just, people won't hear it like a human is talking. They'll hear it like they hate the thing that is saying at them and everything the thing, because there's a lot of dehumanization with her, with how they perceive her. So like everything the thing that is the object of their ire spouts just enrages them. Like if it's not, oh no, I'm dying, they don't want to hear it, is like the vibe people, I mean, it's like, that's very real. It's like the hate for her is so intense, irrational, unjustified, and it's been that way for a while, and like now people get to hang their hatred hats on, oh, it was the Oprah interview, oh, it was the docuseries, which that's not even a reason to hate someone anyway, but like it's such a huge gaslight, because I've been arguing with you from almost day one, like this type of people who have these same gripes of calling her fake, and that was the big one because they didn't have anything, so that's all you could do was call her fake. Again, it was the racists waiting for cover, and now what they're using as cover for their racism is like the Oprah interview, this docuseries, because that is such a valid reason to hate someone. Things that Harry's parents have done versions of. Anyway, so Nottingham Cottage is tiny, and it was funny when they were recounting that Oprah visited. Harry said they had Oprah for tea, and they both were like, she said, you wouldn't believe it, you wouldn't believe it. And that was funny. And that's how it should be received. Like, oh, I hate it. I hate it. I'm so annoyed with the fakery of outrage. Everyone's like, oh, they're so ungrateful because they have a sense of humor about how small Nottingham Cottage is. And like in days of old, in the olden times, the pre-Meghan times, pre-2016, that was like fine. To like say something like that was fine. People, again, I had seen criticisms. You'll probably find old articles about Nottingham Cottage being small from that were written pre-Meghan, because it is, and it's fine to acknowledge that. Okay, and then it cut to how Meghan had her first engagement very early on with the Queen. Not her very first, I don't think. No. I think Charles's birthday was, because I actually remember she wore that yellow dress. I was like following very closely, and I think like the first thing she did right after her wedding was Charles's like 70th or something birthday celebration, and she wore a yellow dress. I remember that, and I remember how nasty people were on media sites that posted that. They were like accusing her of walking like a wannabe model. I mean, so this is what I was like, that was day one, like not literally, but that was her first thing after the wedding, and the hate was already coming in hard. Like, so again, it is the people. It's not just the tabloids, it's the people. That's who I was primarily dealing with, were the people, not tabloid headlines. I didn't read that many. My experience with the nastiness was mostly the people, the commenters, the hate accounts. Yeah. Okay, so that was one of her first engagements was with Queen Elizabeth, and it was on that royal train thingy, and yeah, they had a lot of giggles. I remember watching that video and like, I wonder what she could have said to make the Queen giggle. Like, I wonder what that would be like to talk to her and what she says and what she sounds like. And it's just such an interesting way to view a public figure. Like, the interesting way to view a public figure is privately and, you know, as a whole person. And I really loved how she said it was like she just thought of it primarily as like being with her husband's grandmother, like, and yeah, there's a reverence there just naturally that you and there's just a reference with the way you interact with elders, period, even if they're not related to you through marriage. But like, yeah, like that's how you have to see it. And then of course, but with the queen, there's all the protocols. And so, but like, yeah, she remembers that day fondly, and she talked about it fondly, and how it was also connected to one of her first projects, which was Grenfell, and how is that Grenfell, I read some like a couple years ago, Meghan had been working with them, like she was interested in that, uh in working with them, like 5 months before she and Harry even married. And so she, like, by the time she, like, the cookbook launched, it had been like 9 months in the making. She was going there, visiting them, like again, I've said this before, she's a very hands-on kind of charity worker. It's like that's how she was pre-Harry too. Was like she likes to be in the kitchen helping. She likes to ask what she can do. Like when she went down to Uvalde, I think I said that right, or Uvalde, where the mass shooting of children happened. Um, she was like asking if she could do anything, and that's like her type of help. And hashtag another thing, another way I relate to her. It's like I want to help physically. I want to make sandwich boxes. I want to give blood. I want to do. I want to do, and like, so that's another thing. It's like that's why part of why the empathy is easy to have for her, because there's so much that I relate to with the way Meghan moves. And yeah, that's like a real thing. I don't know, people are so cynical and like, oh, she's only doing it for press. Like they just cannot comprehend how a person would actually want to help people. And like part of it too is they just have to malign her, so they can't. Of course, if you hate her, you're not going to ever grant her the like any positive traits. So you're never going to just like admit or acknowledge that she's just a helpful person. She likes to help in a hands-on way. Never. That like that, because if you're admitting that, then you look extra evil, like attacking her. So of course you're not gonna admit that. You're gonna just keep saying everything she does is fake. It's all fake. Everything's fake. It's such an easy sort of bit of cover to hide behind now. I mean, I guess it was kind of easy back then too, when they didn't have anything. Again, that was their go-to, was just calling her fake, which is like, what does that even mean? Like, you don't believe she's actually smiling? I, like, again, part of the job is, like, even if you're having a bad, or in a bad mood, you had an argument, you know, Kate and William had an argument behind the scenes, they're not allowed to go to their engagements with a frown on their face. You do have to fake it. Like, that is what the job requires, and that's for them, and then that's for all of us. That's whatever your job is. You had an argument with your spouse, with your mom, with your dad, whoever. You don't go into your customer service job or any job that deals with humans, really, and like act like you're in a pissy mood. You can't do that. Like, I mean, maybe some kinds of jobs will allow, but for the most part, everyone puts on a like work face. So like it doesn't even make sense to call her fake. They had nothing. And they still don't really have anything, so they just invent things to insult her with. She's a narcissist. She's faking it. She actually secretly hates everyone and everything, and she just wants to be the center of attention because, you know, women, they love attention. But not Kate though. Kate does everything genuinely, and this is where it's like misogyny meets racism, because they're now granting Kate all of these protections, kind of. Like, even if she does something bad, they'll reframe it as good. And so they're not being equally misogynistic to Kate, is what I'm trying to say. And that is because of racism. And because of what Kate represents now, which is whiteness, full whiteness. And yeah, anyway. So yeah, Meghan was interested in Grenfell for a long time. Very fit. That's part of her work ethic, is like hands-on helper, wanting to like make sure she's doing stuff, actually doing stuff that yields results. And it was even her idea to do the cookbook to raise funds, we find out. And that is just such a beautiful thing. They so had an asset, and blew it, and like kind of blew it seeming on purpose. Like the way they were treating her, they clearly didn't want her to stay. It was like a very passive way of kicking her out, and like hopefully, like probably hoping they could kick out her children. Maybe they will, because they clearly, there's clearly discomfort with having mixed children in the line of succession, within the family, and then clearly with many racists outside of the family who have even threatened Archie's life because they say he taints the royal bloodline. So clearly, and that's like a tell. Like, I mean, there's so many tells. It's so obvious. To even hate her, Meghan at all is a tell. But like another tell is like how whenever they say no one hates her because of racism, like there's some very openly racist people who have very openly expressed how they hate her because of racism, their racism, and how disgusting it is that Harry has mixed his blood with a non-white, what they consider a non-white. So yeah, it's a little bit, at least a little bit, even if it's 1%. You can't just say it's not about racism at all. And of course, in my view, it's not 1%. Like that we can argue about later how much. I think it's like 99%. It's 1% who are not racist who hate her. It's people with their other issues who hate her too, or there are people with other issues who hate her too. Yes, but most of it is racism. Most of it's racism. But like, just to say none of it is racism is just insane. That's clearly like there's objective proof that it's about racism for some people. So anyway, so that was beautiful. Her work with Grenfell was a very successful book, and when this originally came out, it shot back to #1. It was very popular again. So that was great. And so that's like something, if you're being objective, you see that and you go, oh, I like her. Look at how like hardworking she is. Look at the results she actually yields, because there were so many for decades, centuries really. There have always been some percentage of a faction of Brits who like don't like the BRF, the British royal family, and how they just take a disproportionate amount and barely give, if they give at all, and they don't do much to help the people. And this is now a royal who did to help. And if you're being objective, you go, yay, this, okay, I like this. But so many people were like attacking her and saying, oh, of course she helps them. They were even critical of that. Like, I saw the people even be critical of her success helping Grenfell victims. How can that be if these are just honest people who are, I don't know, out for the truth, and it's not about their prejudices? Like, that's insane. Camilla Tominey writing an article about how the kitchen was linked to terrorists? Has that ever happened to any other royal, where they did a successful engagement and a successful like project through an engagement, and then there was a nasty article or a negative article about their work, about their like objective success with it? Because I don't recall that. That was a very like the beginning of the media, I would say. Like, even before Australia, the Australia tour, was the media like, you know, Camilla, like the first time I saw her, I thought she looks like older Kate. She looks like an older version of Kate. So yeah, like, I think the Camilla Tomineys, they see Kate represents them. Even though Meghan is so light, she has a black mom. She has like a natural tan. She's like she's light brown. She's not white. She's not like peach. She's like, you can see the underhue that is like anyone with eumelanin has. So they see other in her. That's enough. Like, she's light skinned, but that's the tiniest hint of eumelanin tan is enough to see her as other from them. And the American thing, and the feminist thing, that also like puts her at odds with a lot of people, but especially the race thing puts her as another. And some of them, I'll grant that they don't even realize it, but I think most of them realize that that's why they other her and have an extreme ease in like being cruel to her and tearing her down. Like, Camilla Tominey wrote that article, and it, like, Meghan was barely in the family for like 5 minutes. She was already showing, we don't accept you. Like, and she's like, in, like, there seems to be a tightness, because she's also the one who, I believe, broke the Kate made Meghan, or no, Meghan made Kate cry story, the lie of a story. So, like, she's clearly Team Kate. She sees herself in Kate. That's like, there's a bit of tribalism happening there, and tribalism is like, I don't know, an anthro word for racism, like a nice academic word for racism. But yeah, so it's like, and that's the type of racism that I think most, that makes me say, I believe most white people are racist, period. Outside of Meghan, pre-Meghan, 100 years ago, even, I think most white people are racist, and I guess most everyone is, but like, no, I'll take that back, because it's very different, because there's not so much hostility with the other races versus white people. Like, white people meet not white people, and they just lose their minds with the desire to overtake them and subjugate them and steal from them. That's like been the pattern. And so, like, there's just something that happens where that's your lineage, your legacy, your people's legacy, and then you get a hubris. You're like, we're so great, look at all the people we've conquered. And then it can get, even outside of race, it's like, that's there even when everyone is the same race. I mean, this is where race is a social construct, because before white people even knew that non-white people existed, they had rivalries with each other. They had rivalries based on land borders. So, the English have treated the Irish terribly, because as far as they were concerned, that was another race separate from them. So there's a pattern here, but like, that's the thing that unifies and galvanizes, is like, okay, you may look slightly different from me and be a different type from me with your different language and different accent, and you're not an Englishman, you're not an Englishwoman, but they really don't look like me, and they can be Asians, Southern or Eastern, they can be black people, they can be, I don't know, American indigenous people. But yeah, so that's what, like, you know, rallies the forces, is like, okay, we'll put aside our differences, Irishmen. So, like, that is way other. Even when the other is, like, looks like Meghan, who's, like, just a little bit tan. That's way too other. And that's way too other, even if she had married someone low on the tier. But she married the favorite son, the favorite royal after Queen Elizabeth. And she's gonna have kids in the top 10 line of succession. So, like, that, there's the layer of, she doesn't belong there, those kids don't belong there, this is for white people, fully white people, GTFO, how dare she, how dare he betray us. That's what they mean when they call Harry a traitor. Like, you can't, like, see him be treated so poorly, his wife be treated poorly, and then call him a traitor for leaving. That's not, he served his country, he does so much for his country still, he's donating to English charities from America, and you're saying he's a traitor. What do you mean by that? Traitor how? Can you elaborate? Oh, you've blocked me. Okay. Yeah, they're racist. That's what it's about. It's racism. Anyway, so Meghan's work with Grenfell was beautiful. Then there was the Australia tour and New Zealand. It was really great. It was very successful. I'm remembering it. I'm thinking about it from how they talked about it in the documentary. Then I'm, like, trying to jog my own memories of it. It was such a, like, big, cool deal. Even that was back when the Shade Room was actually posting about them. That's where I first saw the picture of, like, 2 pictures. There was 2 great umbrella pictures where Meghan's holding an umbrella for Harry, and she's looking at him so, like, lovingly, and it was, like, just after they announced that she's pregnant. That was a big deal. And and there's this one where he's looking at her so protective, and then like I remember even the comments on the day of on in the shade room, they were like, now that's how you look at someone when you want to put another like they were being inappropriate. But yeah, it was like it was such a like obvious loving look, and she just looks so gushy, and like how she was holding the umbrella for him. It was like they're such a team already, of course. And so, there was that cuteness overload moment and all the feels of it because we knew she was pregnant, and which makes sense that they would, these are adults in a relationship, not like 20 somethings who are just like mucking around, playing around, because like, unfortunately women have a window for years they can get pregnant. So yeah, I imagine they would probably be pregnant. Meghan would be pregnant within the year. That's what I was thinking. And so it came a little earlier than expected, but it was like not that much earlier, because yeah, it gets hard. It gets really hard, or it gets harder after like in your mid to late 30s for a woman. So yeah, that felt very right. And like they alluded to this, but like Harry alluded to this, but I thought that, like, first of all, they didn't announce that she was pregnant at Eugenie's wedding, but she wore something kind of like loose that made people start thinking and speculating. So, and remember, like, that was awful. That people were so mean to her for like, because to them that's as good as announcing it, because oh god, the hate was so early. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I've been enduring this, and I guess now I know Sussex fans from, who are mostly, it seems, on Twitter, and I just wasn't on Twitter like that back then. They were enduring it too, and I just didn't know they existed, so I felt very alone in, like, Kensington Palace comment sections and E-News comment sections, because E-News would post, like, about their engagements and events too. And that's where you would see the meanness, and then like sometimes I would just wade into like where I shouldn't have, which was like on hate accounts that existed back then. Some of them calling her the banana princess, some of them calling her, what was it, Wallace Markle? I think that's what the Instagram account was called. Actually, it was like Wallace Markle. That existed like shortly after the wedding. So, like, this pretending that, oh, there we were rooting for her. No, the non-racists were rooting for her, and I think overwhelmingly still are. But the racists were like, half of them were quietly biding their time, waiting for an excuse to attack her, and the other half were already attacking her, but in like with low key hostilities. And although there's a like YouTuber who's like, he's openly a white nationalist who is like attacking her. This guy, I forgot his name, like the Golden One or something like that. And his whole theory even was like a Jewish person was the person who like introduced them, because like in their interview they said a friend introduced them, and I remember him like commenting on their engagement interview, and saying like he suspects that friend was a Jewish person, because white nationalists have a whole conspiracy of Jews working against non-Jewish white people. They're hardcore racist, anti-Semitic crazies. Yeah. So there was the hate. The hate was there, I should say, from the beginning. I can't stress that enough, because they're just doing a bunch of lying now. With it's now they'll say it's because the docuseries, which again doesn't justify hate at all. It still doesn't make sense. And I mean, the receipts are just the existence of the channels that clearly existed long before any Oprah interview or certainly a docuseries existed. But no one points that out. You'd think journalists are being journalists, but they don't point that out. I just read an article by Jack Royston, and he's like, I don't know, I kind of thought he was like on Meghan's side. Just from his tweets, I'd never read his articles, But like he was saying stuff, and I'm like, okay, but if you're being very thorough and honest, because I think the article is called like Meghan is losing support in America, something like that, and I'm like, I'll give it a chance because you seem to be neutral. But then the way he wrote it was so like not fully honest. Like you're talking about how like Joanna, what's her face, who wrote the political article, you know, she represents like American like turning on her, but you didn't even discuss her like the suspicious way she wrote the article, where she like it's not like a neutral person. It didn't come off as like a neutral person whose opinion had changed. It came off as someone who had always hated Meghan, who is now like taking, you know, a note from Meghan Kelly's book, and like who expected the right wing to like her, like that's par for the course. But so taking a page from Meghan Kelly's book just because she's a fellow American, and like jumping on the hate train because it's very profitable to hate Meghan. It didn't come off as like I really like them and now this was the last straw. Like that, does that even make sense? Like if you're really neutral, how could this just a long like the thing you could criticize, I guess, is like it's long. Maybe you could say it's too long, but like I personally don't agree. I think it could even be longer. I think there's just a lot of story to tell. But okay, you could say that it's long, but like I don't know, people share their lives all the time, and how that translates to narcissism, does that feel like an honest assessment, Jack Royston? I don't know, he didn't criticize anything. He didn't like comment on or mention the connection Politico has to like the British royal family, like how its owner is like friends with the British royal family. Like if you're a journalist, isn't that like you like investigate, you point out, you at least mention, you're like, if you're neutral, you go, you know, this may be, you could, I would respect saying this may be a sign that people are turning on her even in America, but you know, it bears mentioning that there is this connection. So just saying everything is like the neutral stance. But this felt very I like leaning towards like I have a bias, like trying to malign Meghan, because like this is not, it wasn't like an honest way to report. I should dissect that. I mean, there's so many things I should do that I have not done in the way of video making, but maybe I'll get to that. Oh god, there's so many. Anyway, so I guess I was just saying, like, yeah, there's such a dishonesty in the way people report on her. It's like, and I know that can maybe come off as, well, you like her, so you think anyone who like doesn't kiss her, but I don't need people to kiss her butt. You can tell the truth without kissing her butt. Like it's so it's such a like it's frustrating because like you're not saying this, you're not being honest. Like you're leaving so much crucial information out. Like if you're reporting on something, and someone did a really great breakdown of why, like just logical, factual points about why this article did not make sense. And okay, that's not what this is about. But there is a genuine logical argument to be made for why Joanna, whatever, the Politico writer's article was not good journalism and clearly done in a place or from a place of bias, and it wasn't fully honest. Like it wasn't honest almost at all. Like you're writing about like 5 or 6 different supposed narcissists, and you focus almost more than half of the article on what you even admit. And like someone wrote a grievance letter to her, and she responded to that person, and she even admitted in that Meghan is like and Harry are the lowest tier of offender for this, but still, you know, narcissism, blah blah blah. I don't remember the exact words, But she even admitted that Meghan and even in her view, Meghan and Harry are on the lower tier. I don't think they're narcissists at all. There's just no evidence of that. But okay, even if you thought that, you admit they're on the lower tier, but you spend more than half of the article on Meghan, like especially on Meghan, barely even Harry, but on Meghan, and you center her in the picture. That's not inconsistent. I'm like looking out to people who are not here. Like, if like, is this a real conversation we're having? Like, we're all being honest, right? We're at least you're at least pretending to be neutral here, or claiming to actually be neutral. If you're neutral, does that make sense to you that more than half of this article is about the person who is the least narcissistic by the author's own admission? That makes sense? Okay, I mean, and everyone is like Elon Musk is very relevant because like I saw someone say, well, Trump hasn't really done anything recently, which is not even true. But Elon, he was on the list. He's done recent stuff. Kanye was on the list. They like Kanye got like 2 sentences worth of mention in that whole article, and Meghan is like 4 paragraphs. Like, okay, obviously, obvious bias and hit job, malign attempt is obvious. Like, I'm not. This is not standing. This is like if someone did this about Kate, and I don't think I like Kate, I have a little sympathy for her, but I don't think I like her. If someone did this about Kate, clearly it would be like, it's like, 7 paragraph article, and like 4 of the paragraphs are about Kate, and she's in the center of these terrible people. And I would be saying the same thing. I would be very shocked. I would be like, where did this come from? But I would be like, okay, clearly this is wrong. Clearly this person just wanted to shit talk Kate. Like, clearly. Like, I can admit that. That's the difference between us here. Anyway, so they had the Australia tour, and then that's when, like, the media coverage of the couple really shifted. And that is even what they said in the Oprah interview, that something about that tour is when, like, the shift in the UK media coverage, that's when it, like, happened, the first shift. And I remember it was even that picture, like, all Meghan is doing is looking up at her husband as she holds an umbrella over his head, and Piers Morgan, that was like the day I learned, because I don't think I had a sense of it before that moment, that he didn't like her, that he was like a hater, so to speak, where he tweeted like, I talked about this in another video too, something like, once an actress, always an actress, or something like that. All she was doing was holding an umbrella, so it was like already the strategy was being employed to like sow hatred, sow seeds of doubt, distrust this woman. Something that people are already poised to do, like, and conditioned to do, is distrust women, and to call them actors even when that's not their profession, and just call them fake and manipulative and conniving when when their profession is not actor. And that really gets used against women if that's your profession. Same thing with Amber Heard. Like, she's now this, like, every move she makes is her acting, another way to say fake. But yeah, they really used the acting thing against Meghan. It's like, I've never seen it used against men. So it was the Australia tour that seemed to really get people in the UK media on attack mode, and in like the invisible contract, like, really started there, it seemed, where it's like, Kate and William, we are not criticizing them anymore. They can do no wrong. We have to, like, forever bolster them as superior to Harry and Meghan, especially Meghan, because we want Harry back, actually. We don't want to tarnish him too much, because we want to leave room for him to leave her, because now it's serious. Now she's pregnant, and this is terrible, and maybe they're even hoping with enough hate she'd lose the baby. Who knows? But that is when it really, like, kicked off, the attacks in the media. Oh, and then my favorite part, maybe I'll show it if I can, because I saw that isolated bit floating around. so if I can, I'll like put it here.
It's the off-the-shoulder dress. It's the same fruit. If avocado's a fruit.
It is, yeah.
This is how it was covered for her. This is how it was covered for her. If you don't see the difference and understand why it's being reported that way, then I can't help you. I can't. I'm sorry. I just can't.
Yeah, that's my favorite part. It's when Harry says, you know, I can't help you. If you don't understand that, I can't help you. It was like, I was like, oh, he's like one of us. He's like, that was like a side of Harry I really enjoyed seeing. The like holding back, calling you a dumbass is that's like what I was, the impression I was getting. Or maybe whatever the British version of dumbass is. Yeah. Sassy Harry for the win. And that was just his, if it wasn't clear, him, like, so that was interesting to see that he had seen that. I truly get the sense, because, like, they said it, but, like, I believe when they say Meghan stays away from it, because it's so hard enough to not be her and see it, to be her and see it, people, like, making up what her personality is and lying about it and making it the worst thing imaginable, which, to be fair, is not very difficult to do for women. You could just, again, people assume that about women. All these things Meghan has been called, they assume that's what women are, especially conventionally attractive women, are those things. Even before they speak, even before you know them, people assume that, and it's almost like women exist in a way where they have to prove they're not a conniving, narcissistic, evil, manipulative stereotype. You have to prove you're not that, because you're assumed that as default, especially if you have a look about you. And so I believe her when she says she doesn't read the tabloids, but I'm sure they get back to her, especially through her friends, a lot of her friends are on social media, and so that's like where she was getting it, because like, I wasn't even getting a lot of the tabloids, but I was getting a sense of the hate because of the comments under various posts about them, under the Kensington Palace posts about them. And yeah, it was bad. It was very hurtful, secondhand hurtful. So I would imagine she stays away from that for her own like mental health reasons and sanity, because that is just, it's too much. And, like, no one has ever had to experience anything like this. I can't think of anyone who's experienced hate at this level, save for Amber Heard, maybe. And Amber Heard, I feel like, yeah, I guess I'll leave Amber Heard in the comparisons. But Amber's ended, you know. Meghan's is ongoing. You know, it's like that's the scary part, is like what stopped President Barack and Michelle Obama, and First Lady, I should say, Obama, from being attacked so viciously, because they're still hated. Like, I forget that, because it's not nearly as intense as it was back then. But what stops them from being attacked as viciously is the job ended for him. He's no longer in that only white men belong their space, or I should say only fully white men belong their space. He's left that job honorably, but still. And they got like the extreme opposite of him after he left. That would probably satisfy quite a few people too. And ultimately he's a bro, so like there'll be clips of him like playing basketball, and even like people who dislike his side, Democrats, they'll be like, yeah, he may not be my cup of tea, but he's cool. And there's always that connection with guys, with bros. Meghan doesn't have that advantage, and mostly people now will leave Michelle Obama alone because she's also not in that kind of position of power anymore as First Lady. And then the smaller versions of this, Lacey Green, she entertained taking the red pill. Francesca Ramsey, when this happened to her, she got off her YouTube. She doesn't make YouTube videos anymore. Who else? Lily Singh lost her show. but Meghan is still a duchess. And that's the thing that, like, even if she's quiet, that's not enough because she's spent months and months, so many months, even while she was living in the UK, like 4 months of maternity leave, she was quiet and she was being attacked. They were making videos about her every day. Post leaving, like almost all of 2020, she was quiet and she was attacked almost daily. A significant portion of 2021, she was quiet and she was attacked almost daily. So even if they make a deal, Harry, you do the traditional role, you go out and make the money, I'll be a homemaker, I guess. That's not enough. They're saying now, oh, we just want her to be quiet, or them to be quiet. That's not true. They were quiet for these are 2 interviews they've done. It's not like you attacked them for Oprah, then you were quiet. You were quiet. The press was quiet. The hate channels were quiet. And then they just all started again because of this docuseries. You've been hateful almost every single day. Since the marriage, honestly. Forget since they left. Since the marriage. Since they married, you've been attacking this woman. You've been trying to get her to kill herself, it seems. That always seems to be the tactic. Because this is just so intense. And it's so unearned. And it's so relentless. And she's still a duchess. And that's what their real gripe is. Because the most comparable of all the people I listed, they're all very comparable. But particularly the thing I think what seemed to be true with Obama, with President Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, was the rage of Americans, white Americans were feeling, who hated him so strongly, calling him the Antichrist and everything, and distrusting his every word, hating him in a very similar way that's so reminiscent when I see the way Meghan is hated. It was that a half black man was in a position that they feel black people should never be allowed. That was the thing gnawing at Trump. Especially Trump was so angry, and he was such a hardcore pusher of the birther conspiracy that he's not even a rightful president because he wasn't born here. Very similar again to the, she didn't even bear her own children, so those kids shouldn't even be in the line of succession. White people, white racists get so incensed in a particular way when people of color are in spaces they feel they shouldn't. Those are our spaces. They're the lowly race. They're the sub race. They're the, low tier human, and for those who can even stand to call black people that. And in this context, you have to understand Meghan is a black person, because that's what the rage is coming from, her blackness, not her whiteness. It's the blackness. So in this context, I will call her a black person. And so they feel black people don't belong here, and that goes for Obama too. I'm not gonna keep saying half, because it's just, yeah. So that's the rage. That's what they share. But the thing again, Obama left. He left his position. The job ended. So now they still hate him. The right still hates him, but it's not even close to what it was back when he was actually president. But Meghan is still a duchess. This is the fear. This is why I'm afraid for her, because that is what gets them more than anything, is that she gets to call herself a duchess. She gets to call herself a title that they feel only fully white people should be ever granted. And so when does it end, When does it simmer way, 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 way down? The ladies I mentioned, they had to leave. President Obama, he had to leave in a sense too. And Meghan, I don't know, a divorce from Harry would lose her the Duchess title, or renouncing of the title would lose her. But this is where, as much as I am so against monarchy, I don't want her to give it up. It's not up to her, it's up to Harry. Harry would have to, because the titles are, again, just like the wedding's bigness. Their wedding's bigness is tied to the blood royal. The titles are tied to the blood royal. Harry has to be the one to say, I don't want to be a duke. But I don't want him to say that. Because it's like the racists get what they want. But I do wonder how much they would attack her, because I feel like they would still attack her. They still would hate her. And now they would just say, "Oh, she took everything from him," because they already say like that, and versions of that she made him lower himself for her, and if he like gave up his title and then hers with it, because hers is tied to his, I think they would still attack her. I actually don't like. It's like they would be very happy they got that. That's what the biggest thing they want. But I don't think the hate would go away. I actually think it would still be pretty awful if she tried to move through the world, and do the things she cares about openly, publicly. Anyway, so I don't want them to give up those titles, because like they only want that because they're racist. That's like the big racist demand. That's the biggest demand they have, is relinquish of titles or stripping of titles. And if they do, well, I won't say that out loud. I won't say that part out loud. But yeah, I don't want that. But I also kind of, because I think maybe it could lessen some of this. But like, would it really? Would it though? I don't know. I feel like I get the sense though that Meghan is not attached. I feel like Harry is the one. He's the one who grew up the royal. Like Meghan, 9% of her life has been being Meghan Markle, Rachel Meghan Markle, and like in her like working life, just Meghan Markle, or her like public life, just Meghan Markle. And so I feel like, easy come, easy go for her. Is like, again, this is me putting myself in her position, and I would be like, whatever. Meghan, just call me Meghan. So it's not, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it could be maybe for her a little bit of a big deal, because she's like knowing what it's about now a lot better than she did, because like that's something that I guess that came up last. See, I didn't do an individual review of each episode, but that was a thing. That was a significant thing worth talking about, how her black identity, what it is to her, and how she didn't even. And it reminds me of me, though. This is another thing where I was like so reluctant to call what I was seeing, the attacks I was seeing Meghan receive. I was reluctant to call it racism, and Meghan seems to have been in the same mind frame where she was also reluctant to consider it, or she, like, not even reluctant, she like just didn't see it as racism. She just thought, oh, this is like a much more intense version of the hazing that maybe Harry warned her about, that maybe even Kate warned her about, who knows. That like, okay, they're gonna be mean to you at first. Like, that lady, the Queen's whatever, sort of seemed to allude to and warn her about, like, it's gonna be mean, they're gonna be mean at first, but they will eventually accept you. Kind of basically was a translation of what she told Meghan. And so like when it was like getting meaner and meaner when she got pregnant, meaner even when she had the baby, and they were like now being mean to the baby, like, this is beyond the pale. This is not even normal for this family. This is like, and then the level of it, and the humanizing bits of it, and the like just even comparing like comments on royalty pertinent articles versus post Meghan. It's like thousands and thousands more comments. The interest is so much more intense since Meghan joined the family. Like the other ones, Kate and the others, are like their fan bases grew because of Meghan, because racists now see them, and right wingers too, who are mostly racist, but not all racists, somehow they see Kate and the gang as like even Camilla even Camilla gets this like good positive light now because I've said this before, she represents anti-Meghan. So Camilla is like this objectively bad person along with Charles, who is like all the things they call Meghan but like worse. She's like married and she's like sleeping with but she's like a shined up turd to them, just because she represents anti-Meghan. Somehow that works. Somehow that's that. I mean, that not somehow. If you get to know how right wingers, royalists, racists tend to think, oh yeah, they'll take a dirt queen and call her their fave. As long as the opposite of the dirt queen is like person of color, left leaning, or yeah, those are the main things. It's just like Trump. It's like Obama was like, again, antichrist, evil, devil man, terrible, vile person with evil intentions to like, brainwash our children and stuff. But and he's so disrespectful. He wore a tan suit, so disrespectful. Michelle Obama showing her bare arms, so immodest, so disrespectful. Then comes Trump, and all of a sudden the respectability that they chastise Obama for not having is like, oh, like Trump is just like everything they said about Obama is what Trump is times like 10,000. And that's like the same thing. It's like they'll like this is I've said this before, but it's like the right, the racists, the royalists, they will say good is bad. They will say up is down. They will say black is white. They will say an evil, vile man who is racist is a good, cool dude because he's not Obama and he leans right. They will say a woman who was a sex worker is actually a sweet, demure beauty, and the former first lady is bad, and she's dirty, and maybe she's educated, but who cares? She's not as smart as this dumb Melania over here, or they'll just say we don't need brains. She's naked and hot, so that's good enough. And so they're very vile. That side is just very, and they use vile a lot to overstate things and to just they use it in a very dishonest way. Meghan like demonstrating how she curtsied poorly and had a sense of humor about it is like vile to them. Vile is supposed to be a word that means like extremely disgusting behavior. They use the most extreme language for women, man. They use the most extreme language for anyone who is the object of their ire, but especially women. So yeah, I guess I was just saying I worry about how it ends. I don't want them to give up their titles. I don't. And I'm imagining myself in Meghan's position and Harry's position. It's the principle of the thing. Like, why should I get less? Why should we? Like, we didn't do anything wrong. People did a bunch of backstabbing shit to us that made living here untenable. It was even bleeding onto our baby. So we left. That's noble. And you're attacking us for what? Like, this is crazy. I'm like, fuck no, I'm not giving my title up. I don't know what those conversations in their house are like. Oh man, okay, but so yeah, what was the last thing I said? It was about Harry and like the way he said, I can't help you, I can't help you. Oh, sassy Harry. Great stuff. And then they were talking about, Meghan said how, like, because, yeah, it's true, American tabloids are, like, considered tabloids. The National Enquirer, the stuff you see at the end of the aisle, or at the aisle, or not the line, the aisle, or no, not the aisle, the line, that you stand in at the grocery store. That's where it'll have all the, like, the tabloid magazines. Those are considered trash rags. Like, in America, that's, like, no one, like, takes those seriously. They're just, like, I don't know, I guess they fulfill some market of bored people who like to read trash, but that's like not taken seriously like that. But apparently, and so this is the thing, Meghan had to learn the hard way and understand the hard way that actually Brits do take that shit seriously. A lot of them, a significant number of them, because she's like doing a walkabout and then some crazy dumbass woman says to her, "What you're doing to your dad is terrible." And I mean, to be fair, there probably are a bunch of crazy dum-dums in America, but like British or Americans don't do American famous people don't do walkabouts. So like I'm sure if like Jennifer Lawrence did a walkabout type of thing, there might be a crazy or two who said something inappropriate to her. Uh, yeah, but like, yeah, she's in a very unique situation though, because like, this is like a time, and you know, ordinarily I think if it weren't Meghan, for anyone but Meghan, if it were getting this bad in 18, which was a pretty aware era of this stuff in a different way, because part of what Kate dealt with too was like, it was an older time. Like misogyny was more like, I know it's pretty normalized now, but there's a certain type of misogyny that was like kind of socially okay, and that's less okay now. So I feel like if this were like, if Meghan were just fully white, they may have, well, I don't know, because the whole point, even if she were fully white, they still don't want Harry and Meghan to outshine the heir and his wife. So maybe not, but like in normal circumstances, if one of the blood royals, if like if for some reason let's say Lady Louise were getting attacked really severely at this time, although she was a kid then. I don't know. I'm trying to think of, I don't know, if maybe Anne, for whatever reason, maybe she did something, she said something that put her in the news, and she was just being attacked, like, at Meghan's level. I think they would definitely speak up for her. The whole, like, we don't explain, that's bullshit, because they constantly do have spokespersons, like direct spokespersons that they'll admit are their spokespersons speaking out, explaining, complaining, and then outside of that they have a million like Kashisti not lawyers, a million like Kashisti reporters, royal reporters in heavy quotation marks, speaking on, like, how do we know the Kate made Meghan cry, or reverse? Well, actually, yes. How do we know Kate made Meghan cry? How do we know that Kate made Meghan cry? Because Meghan told us. Why did Meghan tell us that? Because a story was printed of the reverse happening. Camilla Tominey wrote a story that the reverse happened. How does she know any version of that story happened? Someone told her. So, like, that seems like very much a Kate's team thing. Could have also been William. Part of, like, I have a whole theory about that too. I really think, like, I don't want to like give Kate too much, because it's still her fault, that because she could dissent at any point, maybe, although she would like not have full real custody of her children, so she's in a really fucked up place, to be honest. She has to kind of do what they say to some degree. But I don't know, I can like see the Kate or Meghan made Kate cry story coming from William. Like, his whole plan and his whole thing is like jealousy for his brother. He probably always resented how much more popular Harry was, and now Harry as a couple, as a husband, was more popular than him. That's the last stage. And then he's gonna have kids. He'd just be more like, you can't be more popular as a husband and a father than me. Like, no way. So he was like hiring bots to bolster his Instagram followers. It's so easy, and I don't want to do the same thing that they do. It's not just because of that, but like, I can fall into the traps of blaming the women disproportionately too, because everyone has that bias, unfortunately, to blame the women more. But I very much, it's not just to like prove a point. I really do feel, and all I can say is feel, I don't know, but it feels like William is the one who like orchestrated that story, and that William is the one who is behind so much. Because, like, what the reason it feels like that, by the way, is because of how little Kate was, like, the only time Kate was really talked about was, I said this earlier, as a victim. She was, like, one of the victims of the institution, not as a perpetrator of the badness. And then I was like, I found the clip of Meghan talking about the Kate made me, or Meghan made Kate cry story, and the way she taught, like, listening and, like, really listening this time, it's like I feel like Meghan knows that Kate maybe wanted to clear this up, but, like, someone, and I would think that someone was William, was like, you can't clear this up. I put the story out for a reason. Like, and maybe Kate wanted sisterhood and an ally, and maybe it's William, because, like, the other thing that made me think this is, like, when Harry talked about, I'm getting ahead of myself, but Harry talks about how William, like, yelled at him, and, like, that really confirmed the rumor that William gets, as they say, incandescent with rage, that whole thing. And I think, like, if he would do that to his brother, I can very much imagine and believe he would do that to Kate at times. Like, men who have rage problems, they definitely rage at their wives. Like, what do you... And, like, the way he was raised to be an heir, he's not very gentlemanly, he's not very chivalrous, and his fan base says, oh, it's protocol, or they're not all British, but, like, they say it's protocol for him to walk ahead of her, to not hold doors for her, to not, like, and anyway, so I wonder if William is the biggest bully of all. If Kate's, the thing that made me think, okay, but I'm blaming Kate because, like, look at her when she's solo, like, when she was at the polo match, and she's with Louis, and it's Meghan's first outing with Archie, and she's clearly making a choice not to interact with her. That felt very cold and cruel, but, like, what if William told her not to interact with Meghan and Archie because, like, he's wanting to push that narrative that these two hate each other. She's not supported really in the family. She's a troublemaker. And, like, all he has to do is threaten her with, I can, make press bad for you. I can divorce you, then you never become queen. You never become anything, and outside of that superficial thing, you will be, excluded. You'll never be able to travel with our children alone. Like, William has the power in that dynamic. And Harry and Meghan seem to, like, not just be sparing her, but be very aware of her situation, because they don't, in the Oprah interview, in this 6-part interview, they did not attack Kate. Kate was not the one who they seemed to have any negative feelings for, and maybe they're just not sharing them. Maybe Kate was more of a mastermind than I'm giving her credit for, but it's also very possible that part of why, or all of why, they didn't, like, include her in who they're criticizing or sharing any negativity about is because they know it didn't come from her. Maybe Meghan had those tear-filled conversations. They don't have to be tear-filled, but maybe Meghan had those real, candid conversations with her about what her situation is. They know what Kate is going through better than all of us do, and they know Kate has to think of her kids, and, like, it's not necessarily just about being queen, and it's very simple, and I do that, think, oh, she just wants to be queen, and they do that with Meghan. Meghan wanted to be the center of attention. This is just these easy attacks on women, like, they're just these, like, oh, she's just a simple-minded, shallow person who just wants the queen title. She's just simple-minded. She just wanted to be the head person, and she was jealous of Kate. And like that's the, like, oh, and the other thing that gave me this impression, by the way, is like this is not just coming from nowhere. I'm gonna actually include it in this video because I found it. I'll leave it here.
I had lunch with Harry and William's then press secretary. And in the story I wrote, I said as a line, you know, that Harry and William had fallen out and that was one of the reasons they were moving. And then a lot of the focus was on Kate and Meghan, which was rubbish, frankly, because actually the falling out wasn't between Kate and Meghan, although perhaps that's more sexy for the girls to be, you know, cat fighting, bitch fighting. Kate and Meghan, I think, were kind of trying to support their husbands. And then a couple of weeks later, I wrote a big article about bad blood brothers. Our amazing subs at The Sun came up with that headline. And I wrote about William and Harry falling out and their rift. And that, before that was that, we printed that on the Saturday. And that week, I went out for lunch with Harry and William's press secretary, and I said to him, I was going to write this, I put everything to him. I said that how William, in a sort of fraternal way, had tried to say to Harry, he didn't say, don't marry her. He'd said, are you sure things are moving so quickly? It's really difficult marrying into the royal family. Don't go too quickly. You know, William's a lot more cautious than Harry. They'd fallen out over money. They'd fallen out over positions. Harry had been given these plum positions in the Commonwealth, Queen's Commonwealth Trust by the Queen. William hadn't. But of course, William's going to be king. He doesn't need to be, but he didn't see it like that. So they'd fallen out over money. They'd fallen out over positions. They'd fallen out over a girl.
Hopefully I put it there. It's this clip of, I forget who, but she was saying her insight. She talked to Jason Knopf, and she learned that it wasn't about, and this is the tempting thing our society does, to attack the women, to blame the women. These brothers are the ones fighting. The women are just supporting their husbands, but like the people are just like, you know, pitting the women against each other, like the issue came from them. And, you know, they're siding heavily with Kate, and so she's not really bearing the brunt of it. But from, I guess, our side, from Sussex supporters, she kind of is. So they're attacking Kate. So, like, Sussex supporters are largely attacking Kate, and disproportionate to William, I feel. And then Meghan haters are largely, obviously, they're attacking mostly Meghan. They do attack Harry, but it's more like just as a victim, like they paint him as a victim of Meghan. So both sides are disproportionately attacking women, but I feel like from that conversation, doesn't that like fit what I just said, my theory that these two women are just supporting their husbands here, and it's the brothers who have had bad blood for a couple of decades now, perhaps. But of course, if there's a problem and you're an outsider, you're gonna like blame the woman, especially the new element, the new woman. And so I think Kay is in a really shitty position, potentially. I mean, even if this theory is wrong, she's still in a shitty position for someone who eventually wants to leave her marriage. Because, the good part is that she's English, so she wouldn't have to, leave her country. But, they could turn on her, and they would, because the heir is the most important person. You're the broodmare. The wife is always just the broodmare role. And they, you'd think, oh, they love her so much. They post sometimes the occasional shady article. It's almost like a warning. It almost feels like maybe William is like, hey, remember, I could, they did post an article about the cost of her clothes this year, which felt very odd. And there was another article that they posted, during Jubilee, that it was blaming Kate for the brothers not talking, and that's totally William's. It seems like William's MO. His I don't know. I could be wrong. She could be half the mastermind. I don't want to do that thing people tend to do where they're overly victimizing white women, and they give them too much benefit of doubt and act like they can't be just as evil as their men have been. I mean, I don't think they can be quite as evil just physically, but they can be pretty up there. And individually they can be physically just as evil, but like overwhelmingly they're not. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to make too many excuses for her, but like when you think about it, I just say it seems like William is the biggest culprit. Like, why wouldn't they say anything about Kate? Why wouldn't Meghan, even in the Oprah interview, that's the biggest thing of all the, like, actually, I guess that interview was kind of, or not that little thing that the lady said with she had the lunch with Jason Knopf, but like, also, Meghan, in her own words, her quote, and it could be Meghan's naivete, could be that, but she said Kate is a good person. So that to me, I don't know, maybe Meghan, again, that could be Meghan being like, she can be a bit naive, but she saw things we didn't see. She experienced that couple in a whole different way. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But that's a theory. But yeah, so what was next? Oh yes, the suicidal ideation and Doria crying when she was recalling Meghan telling her about that. That was painful. And as an outsider, that's like where my mind always goes. I said this before, when it was Lacey Green, when it was Francesca Ramsey. These are older YouTubers who were YouTubing from almost the beginning of YouTube, who were the victims of racist and misogynistic and racist, respectively. And although Francesca's also included misogyny, hate mobs, because I didn't make that clear, and you might not know who those people are, and I mentioned them earlier, but yes, Fran and Lacey, they've both been in the crosshairs of like hate mobs who just relentlessly attack them in a way that feels very reminiscent of what Meghan is experiencing, just like a bit smaller, but like individually it's not small. It was like just a deluge. If you're one individual human, one woman, and you're experiencing this, it's just a flood is a flood. It's a flood. And I saw it go down, and I was just like with Meghan, I was one woman army in their comment sections, defending as best as I could, angry and sad for them. And the thought I always have, whoever it is like, how is she surviving this? Because this is like suicide fuel, and it's like that almost seems to be their goal with the way they attack. It's so cruel. It's so evil, the way hate mobs, hate bases attack. It's so unfair. It's never proportionate. It's never like logical. They like seem to always be, the aim always seems to be silencing and killing off this what this person represents. And like that woman says later, I forgot her name. She says something like it's about stomping out what they represent, sending a message to onlookers that you're not going to be supported. Like this is what happens when you speak up. You like, if you challenge, whatever it is, white supremacy or white dominance as the power structure, or if you challenge, in this case, something that kind of represents that, royal power, royalty as the power structure, or if you challenge male supremacy, male supremacy is a power structure, or like that's like BRF is both of those combined. Like, yeah, I know the one we lost, the one the English sovereign that was lost was female, but that was like by chance. Like, that's just how it goes. It's like she didn't represent like feminism at all. She didn't do anything particularly feminist or that would help, women. Like, her being there didn't do anything for how women are perceived, or in like real world aid. There was not much in the way of like being an advocate for women in the world at all. So I just, yeah, I mean, she just happened to be born in a certain position, and some circumstances just happened to lead to her and her bloodline becoming the bloodline that England follows their royalty through, because again, she was born in whose position? Beatrice's position. Firstborn of the second son. It wasn't supposed to be her. It was supposed to be her uncle. He abdicated, so her father became king, and then when he died early, she became queen. That's how that happened. No, she didn't earn it. It just happened to her. She didn't ask to be born. It just happened. So, yeah, it's the accident of birth. It's like, it's not like this woman worked hard and then she earned this like amazing position. Like, no offense to the deceased, but like, we have to be honest here. She was not like a representative of feminism and working hard to get what you want as a woman at all. She was very mute. She was very quiet, and then it seems like near the end of her life she was not even in control really. And it kind of maybe all of her life she wasn't really in control. It seems like a lot of the BRF aren't really in control. It seems like their handlers are in control, and people who have an interest in maintaining a British monarchy and an aristo class of British people, seems like they're in control. Yeah, it doesn't, I don't, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's where my mind goes, because, fellow human, and it's very painful on this end, so I can only imagine what it must be like, what it must feel like to experience this hatred and this attack and this like really disrespectful, really cruel, racist, misogynistic kind of rhetoric and dehumanization directly. And it's like you can do no right, and you're doing something really benign or like really harmless. You're just existing. Like Meghan was just doing the job. In Francesca's case, she's like doing what is it called? Decoded, and she was talking about factual information, and they were attacking her, saying she's racist, she hates white people because she describes white racism and how it impacts how we live today. That's what was touched on quite a bit in her Decoded episodes, and they said she's always playing victim for talking about it. Sound familiar? And same with Lacey, and they drew caricatures of her. She said she made a video about how infrequently women who come forward with rape allegations are believed, and how low the rate of convictions are for people accused of rape are. And then they're like, oh, you think we should believe or people saying they were raped. And then a thing in her comments for several months to maybe a couple of years was saying, oh, Lacey Green raped me, and you have to believe me, because she said you have to believe people alleging rape. So, and that was like mild. That was like nothing compared to what they would say about her. That's just like a memorable, long-lasting one. But they would just, the way they talk, that's why I say it's like they want this person, and then these will be the same guys. The same people who are like, we should care about mental health, especially men's mental health. Oh, fuck you. But it's so disingenuous. Because they don't care, like, especially this time, they really don't care about, like, women's mental health. They will mock women for being mentally weak, and I strongly believe, actually, that if the suicide statistics were reversed, they would cite that as an example of how women are weaker than men because they can't handle it. They can't handle life. Look at them. And like, just when I was thinking, because it's conjecture, I don't know for sure if they would do that. Then I saw a guy say, actually, women are weaker mentally than men, because someone was arguing, I think it was under a Family Guy video, someone said, like, actually, like, the original comment was something like, men are, like, better at being friends than women, and like, because women are, like, I don't know, something, and then, like, the responses led to someone saying, women are actually pretty good at their mental health, that's why, like, men, end their lives more often. Why am I shying away from it now? They commit suicide more often, and very often they commit suicide, like, after killing someone else. They'll, like, kill their girlfriend and their children, and they'll kill themselves, kind of thing. That's, like, that's pretty frequent. So they pointed that out, and then, like, the response to that was something like, actually, women are weaker because they attempt suicide more, and so there's, like, a lot of apathy, and even there's, like, a level for a lot of guys, and a lot of women, but it'll be, like, very specific woman targeted, where they seem to not just, they're not indifferent to, like, women's mental health and mental health struggles. They actually delight in them. They delight in women being, like, tortured mentally. They delight in the idea that Meghan wants to kill her. So they love that. They, like, it's their favorite thing to learn stuff like that. It makes them happy. It genuinely makes them happy. So there's no, like, oh, they'll see, like, Lacey Green crying and feel bad. No, they would probably nut. Yeah. And Francesca Ramsey, there's no, like, for a lot of them, the way they were attacking her, the way they were even threatening her, like, one guy said, like, I actually screenshotted this. A guy said about her once, in the comment section of a decoded video, I just hate her so much, I feel like if I saw her in public, I would throw a brick at her face, or something like that. I'll try to find that. Gosh, it's gonna be buried deep. But he said something threatening like that, of wanting to commit violence against her, physical violence, and yeah. And so I think if this, if Fran had, like, hurt herself in that time frame, I don't think they would be sad. They'd be like, good, she's a dumb bee and we hated her and that's what she gets. Or they would say that privately. I don't think that's why, by the way, because I'm, like, all over the place, but, like, Meghan will at one point cry about, I will actually save that. I won't say that now. But my point is, like, this is the point in still part 4, still the 4th episode. She's sharing her suicidal ideation, and the empathy, let's just say, I think most of her hate base knew that. I think that's what they were hoping for, that she would kill herself. I think that's what they're hoping for now. If they can't, like, Charles isn't going to take her title away, just like, he didn't lose his second term, and we can't, like, harm him, he's too protected. But, like, that, I don't know if people think of in that way for men, weirdly. But, yeah, so they just, like, ramp up the attacks until those 4 years are done. And so Meghan's thing is, like, or Meghan's position, the imposition Meghan is in, is, like, I think that's what they want now. They're just, like, dead set on attacking her, dehumanizing her, until she like kills herself or divorces Harry, or Harry divorces her, or some tragedy happens, stoking hatred for her, maybe having an incel, someone radicalized by Andrew Tate, harm her, something like that. 'Cause like this is like, you don't do this. You don't talk about someone like this that you care about that for. You don't. This is what you do when you want someone to be dead. Like make no mistake. This is what you do when you want someone to be dead. There's no empathy there. Meghan can cry a million tears. She can have like, they could have had hidden cameras that William placed in parts of, I don't know where, of her just being a genuinely kind person. Doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That never mattered. They hate her. They want her to suffer, be humiliated, and then die, and be killed, preferably in a torturous way. Like, that's where these people are. This is like old hat. This is like, for this faction of society, this is how they've always been. This type has always existed. The wants you dead, you'd barely have to cough, and they want you dead. Like, that's, you offend just by breathing. Absolutely. Breathing in the wrong space, breathing with the wrong title, breathing with any modicum of support, because that's part of it too. They really want to isolate her as just universally hated, and that's just not the case. So that pisses them off too. To see anyone supporting her is like, just, it drives them nuts, it seems. Yeah, it's like, it's all they can do. It's their goal, it's their plan, it's their hope. So yeah, they want her dead. And Harry admitted when that part of the doc came up, that he was a bad husband at that point. He was a company man husband, the way William is currently, where he's like nothing above the crown. He's been brainwashed with this, raised on this, brainwashed on this. Is definitely the correct word. He all his life is like, nothing comes before the crown. Not your happiness, not my happiness, not anything. There's a pecking order, there is a goal, and the goal is to exist and to remain. And you do everything to serve the crown, never yourself, and to serve everyone above you, never yourself. And, that's what you have to adhere to, because you were born in this family. And that's just a hideous way to exist. And people with sense, especially in this time, these modern times where we're so much more aware of mental health issues and struggles, and just common sense of like what normal humans need to thrive. And you can see it, like, because this is when the people, the British racist people, will ever have the most empathy, is when George, Charlotte, and Louis are babies, not literal, but like babies in a sense, in the way we call children babies, in a loving way, I mean that, and usually it's said in a loving way. So they're little now, even George little now, and they haven't offended, although I've seen some, well, it's a stray comment here and there, but that's not anything close to the norm to criticize them, but I've seen a stray comment here and there criticizing all three of them so far, which is just like, that alone, weird system that these, anyway, so you can see it now, and with full empathy for these children, and like, if any of them grew to not like this life, to not like this spotlight, to not like, to maybe they have the caring part down, they have the wanting to help and serve part down, but they don't like doing it in the royal way, in this particular way as a blood royal. They don't like it, and they wanted to do it in a bigger way, a more hands-on way, a more productive way, I mean, can you imagine that you would turn your back on Charlotte, that you would turn your back on Louis, that you would turn your back on George, if that's what they wanted? Like, like, Harry did not choose the family he was born into, and all he really wants to do is help in a bigger, more productive, hands-on way, and that's what he's been doing. And that's another thing that makes me side-eyed. Media, UK media is like fully compromised, so that's not even. But like American media, why? That's so weird to me that they don't cover that often, that much of like the endless good work Harry and Meghan do. The list is so long. Anyway, so that was Harry's obstacle, is like breaking through the company man mindset of, and that's what he admitted. Like, he was like, maybe, I don't know, I'm sure he didn't say these words, but he seemed to be in the beginning of the suck it up opinion, like, deal with it, babe. And so he wasn't really there for her the way a husband is supposed to be, the human way a husband is supposed to be, and it's not even biblical. It's so funny because these people are supposed to be religious, chosen by God. They stray from religion though, because like in Christianity you're taught like a man is supposed to cleave to his wife. They're supposed to put each other first above all else, not the fucking crown, like, or like the matriarch or the grandma or the dad, like the brother. That, no, you serve me and you cleave to each other. You serve God and you cling to each other as a couple. That's at least in Christianity, and that's like the Church of England is just, it's an offshoot of Christianity. So, but they don't, man, that's like the least or the most godless family I've ever seen. But yeah, they're like, do you think William prays? Like, do you think Charles is a religious man? I mean, I don't know for sure, but I don't get that impression. Yeah, that took some, it seems, some unlearning, some reminding of what it is to be human, because it's just not normal that a man is in a position where his wife is being attacked daily for breathing, for existing, doing the job with gusto and successfully, and with empathy and warmth and love, and just being trashed for it, and he's like, in what world, outside of the royal family, the British royal family, are people going, you should have told your wife to deal with it? Like, what, who is having that, who is saying that? Who would say that? Who would ever advise that? It's like their arguments just, if you just hold up the implied arguments, because they don't even make that argument, they imply that that is what they believe Harry should have done when they call him weak, when they say Meghan is controlling him, yeah, she's controlling him, and stuff like that. They're implying that what he should have done is just told her to suck it up, because that's the alternative, right? Is like, he shouldn't have fought back. He shouldn't have tried to get his brother to be decent. He shouldn't have tried to like find new ways for he and his wife to work with the family. He shouldn't have tried to go financially independent, because that was always a part of his we're stepping down plan, was financial independence, and like not even stepping down, stepping back, just taking a lesser role but from a different country, a Commonwealth country, like that he shouldn't have done that. They're saying like the manly thing to do would to just be to just let people have at your wife and then your child too, because they were starting it on his child as well. That's manly to these people. And that's what I'm talking about. Black is white, up is down, the upside down people. Anyway, so yeah, Harry had to learn to be a proper husband, and he passed, and I think by comparison William failed. And then something that stuck out to me was how when Harry was recounting, he was quoting his dad, and he said something like in his quote, like that his dad said to him, "Harry, my dear boy," or "my darling boy," something like that. And I was like, that also registered as they're like, I don't know, it's like they're saying Charles not so bad. I would have assumed the opposite. But like, they spoke about him kind of positively in, with regards to helping with the wedding. Meghan called him charming, and now Harry's saying he says stuff to him like "my darling boy." That's like a very sweet thing for a dad to say. And I don't know. He from my outsider point of view, he doesn't seem like the best dad. But I will grant, like, even I who am aware of it, I fall into the trap of seeing people as characters rather than full complex people who have goodness, even though it feels like they're overwhelmingly bad. As an outsider who doesn't know them, who hasn't talked to Charles ever, but it seems like he's not great, but like, he's Harry's dad, and that's why these things are complicated. It's not like they're just TV villains. And again, it fits with what I said, my theory about Charles not being free, like why the coronation is on Archie's birthday, how that is something the press blackmailed him to do, not necessarily something he wanted to do, because again, I don't see how that benefits him. It could have been an oversight, it could have been that, I said before, it could have just been an oversight and just a coincidence. That seems unlikely. Things are pretty well thought out. Like, it feels like intentional, and it feels like the intent was like headlines to put Harry between a rock and a hard place. So it's big headlines if he goes and he brings Archie with Meghan, because that would be huge for them if Archie is there, present, and actually physically there. Gosh, the headlines that will be written. But then if he's not there, they can just use it as an excuse to trash Harry or Meghan or both, for not bringing him, for rather clearly they like the crown. If they were willing to leave their child behind, they could, run with that angle. It would be big dramatic headlines. And so this is also like, that's drama. That drama is coming from the BRF, but people who are always dishonest, right? They don't acknowledge, because they say Harry and Meghan are so dramatic. That's causing drama. Like, that is gonna lead to so many dramatic headlines if they don't show with Archie. If they do show, certainly, yeah, that's drama. I don't know. And about that, I wonder, I feel like Harry's just gonna go alone. As I know, people feel like, dishonest people feel like everything they're doing is the wrong way to do things, and like an inappropriate way to do things. They call it airing dirty laundry. They barely aired anything, but I feel like they're trying to do everything the right way, and so I feel like my first thought was, they're gonna go because that's just what you do. You're the king's son, of course you're gonna go. You're the wife of the king's son, of course Meghan's gonna go. You're the grandson, and sixth in line and seventh in line is Lily. In this family, they're all gonna go. But then I'm like, but maybe they won't. There's been a lot of ugliness since that date was released, especially with like Jeremy Clarkson and his affiliation with Camilla. I don't know if they're gonna go. I don't know. But the darling boy, I gotta say, it touched me a teensy weensy bit. That's like just a sweet way to refer. But that could just be cultural. It could mean nothing to me. To my American ears, that felt very sweet. But yeah, people are complex. I'll give him that. And situations are complex. Yeah, okay. I guess you never really know what's going on behind the scenes, but you do get an idea of it, right? You get an idea from what they say about how it works, what they've been saying, the reporters, the royal reporters and royalists and historians who are especially seemingly focused and concerned with the British royal family. They've been saying for years there's a control there. The press has some control, quite a bit, over the British royal family. So, yeah, I can believe Charles is just not exactly doing what he wants. And maybe doing stuff for drama and headlines, that will benefit the tabloids and ultimately not tarnish and in fact save the monarchy, I guess. At least that's what they think they're doing. So yeah, there was something also I forgot to mention about how I liked how Harry said that racism isn't just the N-word, because yeah, that's what a lot of white people think. They don't acknowledge the other type of racism, the other element of racism, which is just the low empathy, the harsher attitude and hostility towards people of color that a lot of white people have. So, yeah, that's the unconscious bias he was referring to. And a lot, I would say most, if not all, white people have that. And they also, a lot of them, absorb a superiority complex. They just like subconsciously and unconsciously, and some very consciously, look down on non-whites. Especially black people. They just do. That's a race that's been conquered quite a bit, especially by the white race. So yeah, it seeps in, and then add royalty, add classism. Gosh, on top of that, add like aristocracy. Are you kidding me? Yeah, Meghan. Hindsight tells me Meghan never stood a chance. And I think it's hard for her to see that, because her friend group, women who've been so loving and kind to her, personally anyway, are like white. It's overwhelmingly white women of all sizes and shapes, of all ages, it seems. So there's a sisterhood she feels with them, even like subconsciously, where because her experience is the best of them. It's like a lot of sweethearts, wonderful, loving, caring women who are white, who would potentially be called the Karen slur, who she identifies with them, even if subconsciously. Those, like, quite literally, those could be her theoretical sisters. Like, one of her best friends is like also her, like, I remember reading her like cosmic twin, because she's the same birth year and same birthday. I think that's Abigail Spencer. So her personal experience is a lot of very loving, intimate, close relationships with white women and other non-black women of other races. So it is probably like just completely unexpected for her that this would happen, the hostility would be so tied to her race. There's a lot of naivete and lack of experience with direct racism. And now she's getting it in a way that is just, I'm just gonna say, I don't think any black woman or man has ever experienced it quite like this. I know I've said Obama, but and Michelle as well, but I don't. It's that's like the closest, but it's not. It's not. I mean, it is and it isn't. I don't know if I could put it side by side, because like I'm remembering they were calling him the devil. They were saying someone needs to smite him. So yeah, I guess it's pretty simple, but it just maybe just because the length it lasted, or although it hasn't been 8 years for Meghan, has it? But there, you know what it is. I said it. This is the lack of pushback. There is a lot of pushback, and a lot more since the documentary. As much as the hate sort of seems to have grown, it's not anyone surprising. It's the people you would have expected. Like, I don't think any of these people, like right-wing Americans, none of them had a positive view of Meghan before the docuseries. I'm not seeing anyone who's like, I'm disappointed by, who I'm surprised by, hating her. You know, it's all the people you would expect. It's terrible people. It's like, it's if it didn't, like, I just hate a dog pile, so I hate it. But if it weren't outside of that, I feel like reassured, if anything. It's like the kind of people who hate her are terrible people who I don't like. If I needed confirmation that I was on the right side, that would be it, but I don't need that kind of validation personally. But it's so telling when like the worst people hate her. It's like, yeah, good. I'm glad Andrew Tate doesn't like her. Ben Shapiro, like these just awful people, like good. This is a good sign. Like a world where Ben Shapiro and Andrew Tate are on your side. I don't think Andrew Tate is on any woman's side, or excuse me, female side. So like that's a whole thing. But you know, Ben Shapiro being on your side, I'm probably not gonna like you. Candace Owens, Meghan Kelly, these are like horrible people. It's so for Americans, I'm not seeing any Americans that are like, you know, since the doc, before the doc, where it's like, oh, you don't like her? It's people who I already didn't like. I'm really trying to think. I feel like, was there someone who surprised me in recent weeks or months that was disappointing to learn? I don't think so. I think all the people who have been speaking out, maybe for the first time ever, or for the first time in months, it's all like right-leaning racist. Like Ben Shapiro, he doesn't. Yeah, I don't want to get into all the ways that I've disagreed with him. I was gonna start. He does like listing his faults, and ugh, he's vile. But yeah, so it's like terrible people. I guess the only thing is I don't love how now she's on their radar, because I think mostly, I could be wrong because I don't follow them that closely, and this isn't really true of Meghan Kelly, but for the others, they weren't really following her. And I mean, it might just be a thing of the moment because they're in the news for the docu-series, but there's so much happening in America that I don't think they'll make it a priority. For Meghan Kelly, it seems to have become something of a priority because it's a moneymaker. So she's gonna like make sure whatever Meghan is in the news for, she's gonna make sure to incorporate that into her her podcast. So yeah, but outside of that unpleasant feeling of I just hate a dog pile, I hate a hate pile, a hate mob, it's not anything I feel is bad. I mean, really, it's like, it's bad people don't like her. That's fine. For the most part, that's fine. That's a good sign. It's fine. But yeah, and those are the type of people who would not acknowledge that racism is beyond the N-word. It's like, weirdly, because like Ben Shapiro type is seen as intelligent. He's really not. He's really quite dumb. He like has a very shallow understanding of the way the world works. Shallow and like immature, like very childish. It's crazy to see This is why I have mixed feelings about Joe Rogan, because he like said those very racist things, but then he was also the person who just pointed out very logical facts that are, you know, very easy for people with, you know, basic common sense who aren't like in a racist bubble and subconsciously racist to see and understand just the basic principle of cause and effect. Joe Rogan broke down for him one episode where he's on where he like basically explains cause and effect of how racism or how systematic racism works, and how it can become like poverty can be a cycle and how that can affect the prospects of people, namely in this context, in this specific scenario, black people, how that can affect their the ways they move in the world and the ways they're free to prosper in the world, like the environments they grow up in and how that can impact them, and like making Ben seem to contemplate for the first time ever, it seemed, how different his upbringing was from the black people he looks down on, and how your upbringing, you know, can impact how well you do in life. Things like this was what like Rogan was breaking down for him, but Rogan is still someone who said those really just wild, crazy racist things about. I won't repeat them, but it was shocking to hear that. Like, anyway, so I have mixed feelings about Rogan. I hate him, but that sticks with me. That because he does entertain logic, and he is sometimes, it seems from the clips I've seen of Rogan, he'll dabble in being fair on occasion. So it was like kind of wild to see that, and it was like explaining it to like a 10-year-old, like, this is an intelligent man, question mark, if it's not clear from my inflection. Really, you're the one they call intelligent, and you can't figure out cause and effect, like how one thing leads to another, how black people have been uniquely treated in the world. Really, I was gonna relegate it to America, but in the world, and how that can affect how they are able to, you know, garner wealth and then pass on wealth, and how you are as successful as you are because of how you look, partly, and because of the wealth your parents were able to attain and why they were able to attain that wealth. Like, just come on, man. It's wild that you're this stupid. It's crazy. Like, that's a genuine type of stupidity, to not realize that, to need that to be broken down to you when you're 40 plus? Anyway. So, yeah, he's vile, he's terrible, and he's very close-minded and just, ugh. So yeah, that's a fine person to not like. He wouldn't like me. Like, he's a terrible guy. He's a dumb, terrible pipsqueak of a man. God. And, yeah, I think I was actually, that reminded me, I think I was saying something earlier, and I always get sidetracked from my own points about Meghan, and how I think she is, in her way, like, oh yeah, how her white friends have, like, sort of colored her, pun not intended, her view of the world. It makes you more trusting. It makes you, those are the ones a lot of them, or a lot of her community is white women, fully white women. So yeah, she said, like, when it was initially, the attacks were initially happening, she didn't even think it was anything to do with race. She was like, because that's just never been a factor. And I, like, hashtag relatable again, like, yeah, I was kind of raised with the same color blindness too. We didn't have those talks, and I get it. I get being raised in a, like, a diverse utopian bubble, which seems to be what her upbringing was largely. So it's really a damn shame. It's really, but I'm guessing, because this was my experience. You got your understanding of racism and that it was a thing and that it existed like, every February you like learned about Black History Month, or you learned about Black history during Black History Month, and you learned what Black Americans were made to go through. So I'm sure, like, she just learned it, and I think in a historical. I'm really projecting my upbringing onto her, but it's like I learned it in a very historical context, and it was a real moment for me to learn racists still exist. I still remember that day. Like, it blew my mind. I thought racists were like dinosaurs. Like, learning about racism was like learning about the dinosaur age. It was just, oh, that is long gone extinct. Martin Luther King Martin Luther King Jr. came and solved racism. It was my like little kid, and up until I was like a teenager, understanding of race relations in America, and everything was fine now. And like occasionally there will be like the stray random racists in their like 90s or something, is like how racists exist. And then I learned, no, there's a bunch of young ones all around you, actually, because I found a certain website, and that was mind-blowing, and I won't get into that because it's a whole story. So if Meghan didn't see stuff like that, I mean, she's not gonna know. Like, I learned about it in a kind of a unique way. I don't know if Meghan was an internet kid. She's older than me, so that might not, she wasn't dealing with like internet trolls and edgelords online. So she might have skipped that whole thing, because that's where you learn. If you didn't know, the internet will teach you racists still exist. And they're very upset. They're very unhappy with the new world order and the way things are now, and they'll tell you anonymously online in like almost in a lot of different online spaces. So yeah, I can imagine Meghan just did not interact with that kind of person, or if she did, she just relegated them to like internet weirdos. Yeah, because in my real life I don't really encounter direct racism. It's possible for her and for me you can experience racism and not know you're experiencing it. You can just be getting treated kind of off and not know it. But like also with Meghan's straight hair, you wouldn't necessarily know she's black. So, but it seems like she, I don't know, she seemed to have her hair curly until like college days. I swear I saw some sort of graduation picture of her in uni or her in a play or something where she still had curly hair. So maybe she was vacillating between. But I can imagine when she like started in acting, it's definitely preferable for someone of her look a lot of the time to have straight hair. So she's like trying to, fit in the industry. So yeah, that could be a factor, because it would just be easier to have straight hair. I personally think she looks beautiful with curly hair, with her natural-ish curls. Because I remember watching, pre all this, by the way, this was still the olden days, Suits days, where she was just Rachel from Suits, where she said something, maybe it was on Craig Ferguson's talk show, where she gave her hair like a treatment, and now it like broke her curls like borderline permanently. But like, so they're very limp compared to what they used to be. She said something like that. And I've seen her a few times with curls. I saw it, like, you could kind of see it, like, I noticed. You could kind of see it in the documentary. There's one thing where her hair is up, and I'm like, her hair is curly. This must be in between washes. And then there's a picture that was floating around that maybe we weren't supposed to see, of her. Well, first of all, she looked like 20 years younger. Somehow she looked like a kid, where she's with like Archie and her mother on a, I guess, Zoom talk with people, and she had her hair was curly and it looked so gorgeous, and I'm like, I wonder what her thing is. But like that, like, it's such a personal thing, and there are so many black women and mixed women who straighten their hair. Like Beyonce famously straightens her hair. For the most part, I actually can't recall her in curls. But yeah, it's like, it's a thing, it's a personal choice. and you can just decide that's your aesthetic, that's your personal way to express yourself, and it doesn't have to be about self-hate. It can be about self-hate, but it's not necessarily about self-hate. It's not necessarily about, I think my curls are inferior to straight hair. It could be like, maybe in a sense it is that, but like, I just like straight hair. I just like my hair straightened. I like how that looks. I like how it flows. I like how I like the blowout. She could just, because that's what it looks like. And when you know she's mixed, like if you didn't before, like her straightened hair almost always looks like black girl, mixed girl blowout. You can see it. But yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I guess I was saying she's like, yeah, white women have been her community. A lot of them are in her friend group, personal community. So that does something to how you view that group. When a lot of them are your friends, who you borderline see as your sisters, your family to an extent, and they are literally, white women are her family. Her niece is a fully white woman. That's her family. So like that, I mean, that's a whole other conversation I wanted to talk about or discuss. Just that a lot of women, black women, have been like very annoyed with how not, I guess I shouldn't say how many white women are in her community, but more like how few black women who are just like normie black women are in her community. Because Serena Williams is obviously in it, but she's famous, so for a lot of them it doesn't count, because it's like they would have liked her to reach out more. And I don't know, like I don't know, I have mixed feelings about that, because it's like, it's so hard to make friends. And I know, but like she does have a lot of friends, and I mean, I know it's like maybe silly to say, but we don't necessarily know all of her personal friends. Like even the 5 friends who wrote that thing for People, or who like tried to like help her when they saw her like just being attacked beyond, and like I hashtag another relatable moment is like, I felt that when I remember, I'm like getting ahead of myself, but when that came out, I was like, this is what I would do if Meghan were my friend. I was like, this is so good. This is like, it was emotional. Like I remember when that, because they were acknowledging too, like that she's not doing well. Like this is scary. Like what people are saying, and it's like I can feel that, like to know someone, and she's not someone I know personally, but just the impression I got from old interviews, from being a fan, I'm like, what is happening? This is crazy. Like people are being so mean. They're like relentless here. And I was still like, I think at that stage I was still like, but it might not be racism. Like, anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I was just saying I can see how Meghan would be naive. I think she even called herself naive, so definitely not trying to insult her, but it's like, you don't know what you don't know, and you can only know what you experience. Like most of what we know is through our experiences. And if she hasn't experienced people treating her like poorly because she's half black, they haven't acknowledged her blackness in a negative way, and then all of a sudden her blackness is being acknowledged in a negative way. That's what she means when she says I wasn't, because this is pertinent to the last 3 videos that I didn't talk about this. I did a very broad overview when I reviewed that, but this is something she said in the first release, the first half of releases, first 3, I don't remember which one of the first 3 episodes, but yeah, like when she says I didn't know, or I don't know the exact quote, but it's something like, I hadn't ever been treated like a black woman. Like, look at her. Of course she hasn't. Why is that even? Of course not. And I found that very honest, and it, like, stuff like that completely contradicts the things they say about her. Like, she's pretending and she's like trying to infiltrate. No, she's just speaking factually about her experiences in life. When she was on Oprah, or she did the interview with Oprah, that was not just that. It was her speaking honestly about her experiences. There was no like running game. There was no like manipulation. Of course they need to paint her that way to say she's bad, and remember, if she's bad, we get to be cruel to her. But it's not honest. That's not an honest assessment. She was just speaking about her experiences, her life. Like, she was not raised with people attacking her for her race. She was not raised experiencing hostility that she could, discern anyway, for her race. Yeah, she had her natural hair as a child and seems certainly into her teenage years, but she was raised so very similar to how I was raised, in a bubble of diversity where your blackness was not something people held against you. So why would she know to be wary of racists? And yeah, she could have. It would have been good to learn about that element of society, because it hit her. It she experienced it through her mother when her mother was directly called the N-word. But the way she talks about it was just so open, and this is how I experienced life. And I feel like a con artist, someone manipulative, someone who looks like her and is trying to they keep accusing her as get black people on her side. A lot of black people were saying it without her saying anything. Before she said a word, a year before the Oprah interview, maybe 2 years, just you could see it. You could see in the comments. You could see other people were seeing it in the headlines. They're attacking her constantly. They hate this woman. You could see how cruel they were being about her baby, even her even less black baby. They were being hostile towards her baby, her unborn baby, than her born baby, Archie. And this is not a normal type of Anne Hathaway is annoying. Some people will be irrational in that way. I've experienced random Anne Hathaway haters who just hate her for truly no reason. It's even beyond that. It's she just smiles, does the job, and it's Kensington page, the Sussex Royal page, by the time it was made anyway, filled with hatred. It was 60-40, 40 was positivity. It was and it was just increasing. She wasn't doing anything you could argue was wrong. They were just calling her fake. They were saying they don't like the way she's dressing. And next level hatred for her clothes, because she closed her car door. That was early on though. I'm trying to think of what specific gripes they had. Fake was the biggest one because they didn't have anything. And when you don't have nothing, you invent. You fake that it's about fakeness. It wasn't about fakeness. Now I can just clearly admit to myself, say out loud, it's racism. That's what it was. The intensity that did not match the actions, the intensity of hatred and anger and rage that did not match the actions. Wait, she murdered someone, right? That's why you're seething? No, she smiled too long. Oh, she made eye contact with the camera, but there's a picture of Kate at the same event making eye contact with the camera. Oh, ignore that. But Meghan's doing it because she's so Hollywood and full of herself. They were already calling her a narc for doing what her job. God, don't bring me back there, because it's but do bring me back there. I wish I'd been making videos, because then I would have been documenting it, right? Damn it. Because now they get to change the narrative. They get to lie and say, oh no, it's because of Oprah. When that was first happening, when they were saying, oh, I liked her, and then she did the Oprah interview, that was I mean, it's still pretty annoying, but I just remember being so livid, because it was fresher. The experiences that led to the Oprah interview were much fresher, and this is how they get you, sorta, because it's just like Obama. They were just saying the most wild, crazy, evil, mean shit about him and Michelle, and then it ends, and you slowly, what happens, the nature of our brains, I guess, as humans, is we forget how painful it was. Even we forget how bad it was. That's happened with Trump. He said so many terrible things that you kind of forget, oh yeah, he did say that. He did once say that women should expect rape if they intend from their brothers in arms, if they intend to be soldiers with men, if they want to join the military, they should expect that as an outcome, that they're like unwise to even try to be soldiers, because of course the men are going to rape you. He said something real, like, I'm not like exaggerating, that he said that. And like he said like 100 other things though, like within like the next month, that you don't even remember that he said that, and it's like you can overwhelm. So like with like nastiness, so they would constantly be nasty to her from basically the beginning, and then you slowly just kind of forget that happened, and now they get to say it was actually the Oprah interview. And now people who were not paying attention at all, people, racist people, and like black, mostly feminist women who are like interested now, they have no idea. They were not following this closely at all. So it's like I always feel like, gosh, I wish I could fill you in, because like you're so like not informed. I don't mean that as an insult, it's just literally you're not informed about what led up to all of this. Like, anyway, alright, so this is the part where I have to interject, because the original recording is 5 hours long. It was actually more than 5 hours, and so I'm gonna split it into 2 parts, and yeah, that's part of why it took so long to edit this thing. It's very long, and also, it's very late. It's late. I just, as I said in the beginning, holidays were busy times. This is a busy time of year for me, for a household, and so I kept putting it off, and was distracted and tasked with other things. And oh my gosh, so much news has come out since since the latter half of this documentary was released. As you well know, there was like a thing every day almost, basically. So I'm very behind, but I guess it doesn't matter that much. But yeah, I did still want to do this, clearly. And editing through 5 hours, like almost 6 hours of recording, it's a lot. It's a task. It takes time, devotion to sit through, and I don't love listening to myself back, honestly, but I guess probably a lot of people who edit their own videos, vlogs, whatever, they probably don't. It's not the most fun thing to do. Anyway, so I just wanted to add this little outro to explain. I had to split this originally approximately 6-hour video just covering part 4, episode 4, into 2 parts. Yeah, this is the end of part 1, and part 2 will be uploaded and finished much more quickly. Sorry about that. But thank you for listening and watching, because there are visual components, even though I don't know, this is like, because most of it is not, the pictures in this don't change that much, so I don't even know how you would watch it, because it's mostly this. It's mostly gonna be on this screen of Harry and Meghan, which is a great picture, but it's like, yeah, who can just sit and watch that for most of a video, I think it's gonna like 3 hours. Yeah, this will be a 3-hour, part 1 is 3 hours, so it's like so funny, because I initially hoped I could just do 1, maybe 3-hour long video covering all of the episodes, and I should have, but as you know, if you've made it this far, I'm gonna go on a tangent. I'm gonna go on a sub-tangent. That's just me. I can't help it. That's like what happened so much throughout the coverage of Queen Elizabeth's funeral. That's why I still didn't even upload the last parts of that, but those videos are so long because I just, one thing makes me want to talk about another, and then that makes me want to talk about, because there's just so much to this. it's a heavy topic. There's a lot to say. I can feel myself wanting to even do it now. But because just so much has happened. This is the eve of the release of Harry's book of Spare, and this is how long it took. This part 4 reaction review thing I've that you just saw listened to part 1 of. I recorded this I actually sat down to record it at the end of December. It wasn't even New Year's Eve yet. It was December 27th, 28th. It was still December. It is now January 9th, and this probably won't be uploaded till January 10th because it's pretty late in the evening. And I just to be proper and a good editor, I should look over it, listen to it just one more time to see if I missed anything or I left in anything that just doesn't sound good. A yawn, too long of a pause or whatever. Gotta edit stuff like that out. A sneeze. I got all the sneezes out. Yeah, so I should listen to this 3-hour thing one more time, but I don't know if I will. But either way, it's probably not going to even be uploaded until Spare Day. Which, by the way, while I'm here, while I have your attention, I'm probably, or not probably, I'm definitely going to listen to it. I'm definitely going to, my first, how do I say it, consuming of this book is going to be via audio. I generally prefer to visually read books and consume them that way, but I really wanted to, because when I learned Harry is going to actually read it, I really want to hear Harry say the word. I don't know, there's something powerful in that to I've said this before, it's connected to something he said that now I know he said in, I think, the 60 Minutes interview with Anderson Cooper. That's what this is about. There's all the noise of the deranged, the derangers, the hateful, the racists, the right-wingers of the world, but the history books are going to go to the direct source. They're the people who make those. I think the channel's called Real Royalty. They're not going to defer to body language guy. They're not going to defer to the endless racist Karens, the raccoon women like Padina. They're going to just listen to what Harry and Meghan said, and that is what matters. These sideshow circus people with their opinions that never even seem genuine, they're they're big, don't get me wrong, but they're sort of inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. So it's good to do this, to say it in your own words, let your own words be there on record, which Harry said. I think he maybe even said that to Michael Strahan. There's so many interviews, and then tomorrow he's gonna be doing the Stephen Colbert one. Already clocked that one. Already definitely gonna watch that. So man, and it's 15 hours, the audio version of the book, and it's an abridged version. That's why I'm missing out. So I'm definitely gonna get the hardcover one eventually, but I am gonna initially consume this as an audio medium, and I'm excited. I imagine it'll come out at midnight. Well, I don't know, but there's no need to pre-order I could have, but I didn't bother pre-ordering it because you can't run out of audio copies, right? So I will just order it at midnight, or try to. Hopefully Amazon doesn't crash. The interest is crazy. Even my mother, who doesn't even she cares, but she was a Diana fan, but she was even, I'm just gonna be real, she was kind of had a negative view of Harry because she is experiencing it also externally. She just sees him as not being, not doing what Diana would have wanted, because there's now this rift between these brothers. That's how she views it. And even she watched the 60 Minutes interview, and she was like so moved, and she was like, you know, William is so disappointing. I was like, yeah, mommy, I told you, but I didn't actually tell her that. I've just been like hinting at, I don't know, when it comes up, I just always hold back, because in me is the like urge to go, you know, William did this, and the royal family have been doing this, and the races have been, like, I just want to go through all of what I've been experiencing, but I'm like, no, no, I play it cool, is what I'm trying to say. I'm like, well, you know, William hasn't been the best brother, and I tried just to, like, well, play it cool. And that's what I've been doing, even with family, even with, when my mom actually sat down, watched that interview, we talked on the phone, she's like, very, I mean, she was already a little like empathetic towards Harry, a little empathetic, but she was a little bit doing the blaming Meghan thing that so many older women have been doing, and older men who care enough, because a lot of, I will say, in the real world, it seems like older men don't care as much. At least like American ones, English ones, they care a lot more, but yeah, so my mom, she was a little bit blaming Meghan, and I don't know, I mean, I do know it's a thing in our world to blame the woman, and it's so interesting to compare my, like, interpretations and theories to what Harry has now said and revealed, and man, my timeline on Twitter is so filled with spoilers, and I think, like, misinterpretations. That's part of it. I want to hear Harry say it. I just want to hear him say it. It'll always exist to him in his own words. I love that. I love that. So anyway, so I think my last video was also on the eve of a big thing. It was on the eve of the release of part 2, right, of the Netflix docuseries. So that's funny. Kind of a full circle moment. Hopefully the video after this won't take another, what, like 20 days approximately, like maybe even a month's worth, maybe like closer to 30 days it's been since my last upload. Oh, it's just, it's big, it's busy. It's like, even now, even in this mid-January we're approaching, it's like a busy time of year for me. Anyway, though, thank you for listening. Like, share, comment. And yeah, I know sometimes, sometimes consuming something that is 3 hours long is like a daunting task that's so annoying. But for some people like me, I actually like when people I follow upload like long videos. I don't know, I love long videos. So maybe you're one of those. And if you're not, I'm sorry to make you, well, you don't have to, obviously, but to I guess, but if you did, to have made you, in a sense, sit through that. But you know, listen, it's like a podcast, listen and do other stuff. That's like why I like long form. Anyway, so thank you again, and I'll see you hopefully on a more regular schedule, because it has calmed down a bit in these upcoming weeks. Thank you again. Do all the YouTube things like liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, and goodbye.